Welcome, everybody, back to
Yay.
day 2 of ErinCon. I got to admit, I'm a little bit nervous and I'm a little bit excited. We have our two dear friends, Walter and Louise Simonson, joining us today. They're legends in the industry. I've got a ton of questions, and if I feel motivated enough, I maybe include some of your questions in the comments. You guys, if you behave yourself, we'll see how it goes.
Yes.
But
no slapping today.
Let's not waste any more time and bring in really the stars of the show today. First, legendary writer and editor Louise, affectionately known as Louise Simonson. Thank you. I'm giving you top billing here over Walter. And now let's bring in the guy that made Thor famous again, among many other accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Walter Simonson. There he is.
Yay.
Hey. We were just talking a little bit off before the show started about that. It's been at least a couple years since I've seen you guys. I think at San Diego last time they actually had a San Diego. So
that's right.
This is kind of like a reunion for us, as well as me getting to play interviewer and ask you some hard hitting questions. This is going to be like 60 minutes. So
all right. Tick. But I have to say, I do look at your Facebook page, and I'm always inspired by the drawings you put up there. So even though I haven't seen you for 2 years or a year and a half, whatever it is, almost 2 years, I'm still inspired by your work.
Oh my gosh! Thank you. You're so kind, because I say the same thing about you. And I've got to admit something to you in a minute, but I'm not going to do it quite yet. But
I want to ask about the bear.
Yeah, Shelley, you're looking out the window right now of your studio, aren't you?
I am.
So. You have some wild
over on the kitchen side. We have a wrought iron pole with a bird feeder on it. It's a plexiglass, well, not plexiglass, some kind of plastic that's not quite bulletproof, because the bear did crack it once, but it's withstood a lot. And I leave it out there mostly if I leave it out overnight. Then once in a while, maybe in the old days, when we first moved here 30 years ago, it was once every 4 or 5 years. Now, if I leave it out, it'll happen in the summer. Every summer. But the pole will be bent over at a 45-degree angle, and the bird feeder is lying on the ground empty. And I can bend the pole back up, but obviously raccoons, badgers, foxes, squirrels, the other animals in the area can't do that. And so we figure, oh, it's a bear. And this time it was a young bear, but plenty strong. We did not go out and dispute its right to work on the bird feeder. And it was sitting on its haunches. It had bent the bird feeder down, and it wasn't old enough to figure out how to get the bird feeder off the pole. So when it was done,
the older bears can get it off.
What's that, honey?
The older bears can get the feeder off the pole.
That's right.
We've seen them
he just had one paw up. You can't see it in the photograph. And he just pulled it down like a window blind. So the pole was back at its 45-degree angle. The bird feeder was hanging from it, and he was just holding it down, and then he would pull it over and eat out of it, and then go back and finish off that mouthful, and then pull it over and eat out of it. And he finished about half the seed before apparently he was full and decided to leave. So I bent the pole back up. And we don't usually see them in the daytime like that. Usually they come at night. But this guy was hungry enough and young enough and thought, I'll just go over and enjoy myself.
So do you ever have to look out your door before you go outside to make sure that it's safe outside from any wild animals?
Do you have like an air horn thing?
Yeah. Yes.
We don't let our dog out without a leash. I mean, when we first were here, we had dogs in their 90s, 2 small ones. And we never thought about it. The traces of bears were so rare that we just let them go out and do their business. They ran around the neighborhood. They made best friends with a dog just over the hill from us. There were 2 little dogs. And they were, they really didn't. We never thought about it. It just didn't occur to us that there might be some trouble. One of them once treed an opossum. One, and the same little guy, apparently had no sense of smell. We could smell it was skunk. And when I was barking and barking and barking and barking, and I went out, and part of our house has a couple of freestanding walls that formed like an L like that. And he had backed the skunk, it was a young one, into this corner and was standing about 3 feet from it, barking his brains out. And in fact, I think the skunk may have run out of scent eventually. Although there was plenty to go around. And so, and I didn't want to get any closer because I wasn't sure the skunk had run out of scent. And so eventually, because it was that side of the house, I was able to unlimber the garden hose and wet them both down from a safe distance. And finally, Munchie backed off enough to let the skunk get around the wall. And then it ran across the yard, and Munchie went off in hot pursuit.
Oh, no.
And when it got beyond our yard, Munchie came back proudly, having driven off the invader. And even though we bathed him in vinegar and ketchup or whatever you're supposed to, vinegar and something, I forget what, he's and got his hair cut. Ever after that, for 3 months, whenever it rained, he smelled like burnt eraser. So I don't know what that was about. He apparently didn't, his smell, it didn't bug him. Not enough to stop him from trapping the skunk.
That's great. Okay, before we get into the hard-hitting questions here. No. I've got, my son Josh, obviously.
Yep.
Now, he informed me yesterday, I was talking to him because he watched part of the day one show yesterday. And he said, Dad, I was listening to your stories and I heard them all. And then I was watching you draw, and I've seen you do that before. And he goes, it just dawned on me. He said every day around the house was Aaron Kahn. So, but he said he was. He said he was going to tune in for you guys today. In fact, he sent me these pictures. I want to share with you here real quick. Okay. Unfortunately, there's like 6 buttons I have to push actually to share the screen. So, okay. So he set up a little Walter Simonson shrine in his apartment as he's watching this on YouTube right now. So I wanted to make sure I embarrassed him as much as I could. So
wow.
So
that's pretty cool, actually.
Stuff out there.
Well, tell him I'm enormously flattered. You're probably listening, aren't you, Jeff?
He's listening right now.
I'm enormously flattered.
He's got your Thunder Frog, I guess that was a Bowen statue there, and Beta Ray Bill, and a little HeroClix. If you remember.
I had one, I believe, that I was given as a gift.
12, I think, at MegaCon that you spent a lot of time with him.
We were into HeroClix big time.
It was like watching you. I remember you were sitting in the corner with him, telling him stories or talking to him, and I thought, I'm so comfortable with Walter doing that. If that had been Howard Jakin, I might have have to stand a little closer to see what Howard was telling him.
Filter.
You might have learned more from Howard. Although whether it's knowledge you want to give him or not, I'm not too sure. So.
All right. Okay, guys, I want to start I got a question for Wheezy to start this thing off. And again, I'm going to have to share an image here, so I have to click on 6 buttons. So forgive me as I'm click.
I'm impressed, actually.
Click. All right, are you ready?
Yep.
Is this you?
Well, it's a rendition of me. I posed with. I was one of Bernie's pals, and he took it into his head to photograph the Swamp Thing story. So I was the beautiful woman in distress, and Michael Kaluta was the villain, and Bernie, I think, was the hero. I can't remember. I think Jeff took the pictures. So we went through a phase where the guys just decided they wanted to use photo reference, and they did for a little while anyway. And I got to be the woman, the beautiful female assistant, the beautiful female heroine in several things. There's another series of shots somewhere from a medieval photo shoot that we did with me with a pillow tied onto my head to pretend that was pretending to be a medieval headdress of some kind. I wish I had those photos now. It was fun. It was, we were kids back in the olden days.
Well,
Michael may have some of those pictures. I think
maybe he does.
He's posted them once in a while.
Well, that leads me into I guess my first question for both of you is, were you guys comic fans or readers growing up at all, or is it something you kind of fell into in later in your teens or young adulthood when you got into the industry?
I read Dot Comics when I was a kid, and Sugar and Spike, and I didn't read a lot of comics. I had a very small allowance, and I could it was big enough so that I could buy an ice cream cone or a comic. And I was taken to the library every week and was allowed to take out, as many books as they would let a kid take out, which I think was about 10. So you could go to the library, you could get books for free, and you'd still have ice cream money. So mostly I opted for the ice cream. We did have a subscription to Uncle Scrooge comics, and I read those. And I would, when we went to the grocery store, they still had spinner racks.
Yeah.
And I would pull comics off the spinner racks and read them for free. I read everything. I found Superman comics annoying, mainly because Lois always aggravated me. It was like, oh, come on, you're a major reporter. What do you and your goal is to find out if you can cut Clark's hair with scissors and things. So I found that really annoying. But yeah, then I ended up writing Superman at one point. So that was
you got your revenge. You got your revenge.
I'm the one who I fell into it. I got hired at Warren in the production department, and found out I loved working in comics. I loved working with people in comics. They put me in editorial, and the rest is history. So,
well, that was another question I had for you. I'm not going to ignore you totally, Walter. We'll get to it eventually, but
I'll see you guys later.
Anyway, right?
No, so you just like answered a want ad or something for Warren? I mean, how did you end up at Warren?
Well, I had a batch of friends who were in comics at the time, and we lived in New York City. Yeah. And I was working for a magazine publisher, an advertising promotion, but I had friends who worked at Warren, and Michelle Brand was one of them. She was an artist writer back in the olden days, and then was in the production department at Warren. And she said, there's this job opening at Warren, and it pays better than your job at advertising promotion. So, why don't you apply? And I applied, and I got the job. And it turned out I could do the job sort of, but I wasn't a great production person. I'm just not really good at I was okay at paste ups and mechanicals. I'm not great at art corrections, not great at lettering corrections. I pretty much sucked at that job, but it turned out I was really good at other things. I could write advertising copy. I could do letters pages. I could fill in for everything that they needed a fill-in person for, including probably production, which is probably all I was good for, is filling in there. So they just moved me over editorial. They created an assistant editor position and moved me over to editorial. And that was really fun. I loved being in at comics editorial. So I loved working at Warren.
Great. Walter, I'm going to throw the question back to you now. Were you a comics reader or fan as a kid growing up, or how did you kind of work your way into that medium?
I read all the comics I could when I was a kid. Like Weezy, I couldn't afford to buy a lot of them, but my parents would buy. I had a younger brother. They would buy us comics once in a while. There was nowhere really close by that had comics like spinner racks. There was a brand new shopping mall when they were still pretty new. I'm that old. So it was a shopping mall were kind of a new deal. And there was one about, 2 miles from our home, maybe a little more. And we'd go over there. My folks would go over there, do some shopping. My dad traveled a great deal. His work took him away from home, like a week trip, 2-week trip. Longest he was ever gone was 2 months. And he traveled really worldwide. He traveled all over the world, a lot of the U.S. and then occasionally overseas trips. And so we'd go over there. There was a cafeteria, Hot Shops, I think, which was an early Marriott restaurant. And we'd go there. And there was some place there that had comics. I can't remember what store it was now. I remember seeing them racked up. And so usually my mom would buy us 2 or 3 comics when we were there eating dinner. It probably kept us occupied. And I just liked everything. It was the comic book form. I read it if I could get a hold of it. So I had a very good friend when I was a kid. And we drew pictures together. We took piano lessons together. His mom was the piano teacher. We built plastic models together, or both built them, not always together, literally. But and we read comics. He had a stack of comics in his room, and we had a stack. Dad had built a shelf. It was in our dining room, like a freestanding shelf, 2 shelves on it and end pieces. And it was where the toys were kept. We had boxes there. Keep right, as long as you kept them off the floor, we kept them over there. And there was one corner of that shelf where we put our comics. And so that stack grew with time to be maybe a couple of feet high, probably not taller than that. And so I read everything. I read Classics Illustrated. I loved, and still do, the adaptation of The Three Musketeers. It was redrawn in the mid-'50s. I do not know who the original artist was in the '40s. It was typical '40s work, not great. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but that didn't appeal to me. But in the '50s, mid-'50s, it was redrawn by somebody, and it's incredibly lyrical. Coloring's pretty heavy on it. I mean, it's got that saturated, color on newsprint. But the drawing itself is just spectacular, and it's very lyrical. It's very. I've come to understand now. I think it's all brushwork, and beautiful brushwork. And as I did not know at the time, because I had no idea who he was, clearly Errol Flynn is drawn as D'Artagnan.
Yeah.
And I didn't see an Errol Flynn movie until I was in college, I think, or later. And then one day I opened up the old comic and went, "Oh my gosh, it's Errol Flynn," because it clearly was Errol Flynn. But the drawing is beautiful. And it turned out, by that time, somewhere in there when I was in comics, I began looking at stuff. I discovered it was by George Evans. And
really?
It's
George Evans is
post his DC career, but it's before he began working for George Wonder, ghosting Terry and the Pirates. And so it doesn't have at all the look of Wonder. It's just this gorgeous lyrical drawing. Sort of broke my heart to see what happened to his work after he worked for Wonder for so long, because it lost a lot of that quality. But that job to me is just a fabulous job. And one of the things about it is that he double lit a scene where Milady de Winter escapes from her prison in England. There's a thunderstorm raging, and she seduces a young guy into betraying the Duke of Buckingham, and I think he gets her out of there, then he kills the Duke. And what I liked about it was, or what it taught me in a way, he didn't double light everything. So unlike, say, Woody, where so much stuff was double lit regardless of the situation, which was beautiful. But George used it for storytelling, where there's this moment where the thunder is rolling and the light's coming, the rain's coming down, and you get this double lighting on these figures in the middle of this storm as she's trying to escape and climb down the outer wall of the castle with this guy. It taught me a lot about storytelling, sort of in retrospect.
Sure.
So I read like Cheyenne, which was an old TV show, Sugarfoot, the Lone Ranger comics. There were actually comics about Silver, the Lone Ranger's horse. I read those.
I got his one spin off.
They had Champion. Gene Autry had a horse that had his own comics briefly. I read, what Superman books I could. We didn't see comics that often, so I never bought like all the Supermen in a row where you kind of read one book every month. I just read what I could get. My mom, of course, throughout my comics after I went to college. And the only comic, one I regret, although I don't really care, is I had the first appearance of Supergirl, which was in the front of the Superman, whatever book it was, and had Metallo in the back with his introduction. So it was kind of a cool comic, long gone. But I read, and then we had like Weezy's family, actually. At some point, my folks let us read comics because they wanted to encourage the habit of reading in us. And they didn't care much what we read, as long as we were reading. And so they picked up a subscription to Walt Disney Comics and Stories, with the Donald Duck stories in the front by Carl Barks and the Mickey Mouse stories in the back by, I'm going to say Floyd Gottfredson, but somebody here may be able to correct me on that. I liked them. I didn't pay quite as much attention to them as the Donald Duck stories. And then we got into Uncle Scrooge as well because of that. So those are probably my favorite comics as a kid. A little later, by high school, I discovered Turok, Son of Stone. And hey, dinosaurs, Indians running around the lost land. How can I not love it? And Alberto Gialetti doing a lot of the artwork, whose work I loved a lot as well. And so I think I bought a subscription to that on my own money. And those were the only two comics we had subscriptions to back then. So I remember reading, what's the Destruction of Pompeii? There's a classic novel. It's the only Classics Illustrated that Jack Kirby drew. The Last Days of Cafe, maybe, is that it?
Yeah.
He drew. I gather he drew one and it's clearly Jack when you look at it. So, but I didn't care who drew them at the time. I had favorite guys like Carl Barks, but I just read comics and I read whatever I could get a hold of.
Newspaper strips.
What's that, hon?
Newspaper strips too. Did you
Oh,
read
yes.
really young?
Yeah, I read. That's the sort of thing that apparently there are two classes of people. People who read used to be the people who read newspaper strips and read the select ones that they like and skip everything else. And then there are guys like me. I read everything that the paper carried.
I did too.
So I read Gil Thorpe. I read the Jackson Twins. I read The Heart of Juliet Jones. I read Carrie Drake. Whatever it was, if it was their Penny, I think I read. I read anything that was in the paper. I had some Leonard Starr on Stage, one of my all-time favorites. It remains. I'm still in awe of what Leonard was able to do in that format, the way he was able to use both realism and graphics to tell, and the way he did storytelling. Just fabulous stuff. And so, yeah, again, comics form had pictures and balloons. I'm in.
So at that period of time, was aspiring to be a comic book artist a thing, or were you just looking to get into commercial art and comics presented itself, or because you went to art school, right? And
I did, but that was a late development. I had no interest in becoming an artist. When I was in third grade or thereabouts, Disney re-released Fantasia. My dad took me to see it. I was completely blown away by Stravinsky's Rite of Spring with the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And the fight between the Stegosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus. In later life, I'm amused by it because Deems Taylor, who gave the introduction, was saying, this is a coldly scientific replication of, ancient life, blah, blah, blah. And right now, we live in time closer to the T-Rex than the T-Rex lived to a Stegosaurus.
Yeah.
The period of time from the Stegosaurus to a T-Rex is longer than the period of time from the T-Rex to us. So, and they knew that back then, I think. So I don't know how coldly scientific
they did it condensed for entertainment.
For entertainment, I understand that. But I loved it, loved it. And so I became an enormous dinosaur fan from that moment on. I had a goal for a while of buying every book, period, in print about dinosaurs. And I gathered quite a lot of them before dinosaurs kind of took off. I said, okay, I'm going to have to stop this. I can't really afford to buy every book about dinosaurs now. But what that did was it drove me in my high school yearbook in my senior year. That little ambition, you had your name and the clubs you belong to and all that stuff in the back. We did anyway. And my ambition was to be a vertebrate paleontologist. So I probably had the longest words in the ambition of anybody in our school. And when I went to college, I went to a college that had paleo as an undergraduate course. Most of that's a graduate school study. And I went to become a paleontologist. I always drew. I drew from younger than I can remember, less than 4. My mom told me the stories about that. And so I always drew. And by high school, I had at least one friend who told his wife, which I found out 50 years later, said, oh yeah, Walt's doing something with drawing. It's not going to be dinosaurs. It's going to be drawing. So I just drew on my school notes. The little guys crawling over my paragraphs. I had a little spaceman character I developed. He would climb up on paragraphs, and then he would jump off the other side and turn his rocket on and float down to the bottom of the page, stuff like that. But I really, at the end of my senior year, I think probably in March or thereabouts of senior year, we graduated in May, I decided not to go on in paleo. I'd applied to grad schools, hadn't heard back from them yet, and I decided, this is just not what I want to be doing. And so I'm sure my parents were thrilled. I called my parents to talk to my dad, told him I'd made that decision. He was very supportive. I would probably love to have heard the conversation he and Mom had after he hung up, although maybe I wouldn't want to have heard that conversation. And I took a year off. That was 1968. So Vietnam was the biggest concern for any 21-year-old guy in America.
Yeah.
When he got out of school. And I was drafted. I didn't make any plans because I just figured I'd be drafted and then I'd have to do however that worked out. And I was drafted and I took my physical, and I flunked it because I have really bad eyesight. I'm legally blind. It's correctable to about, well, it used to be anyway, to about 20, 30, somewhere in there. So I get along just fine. But that got me out of the Army, which was not the worst day of my life.
Probably.
And,
during that time, man. Wow.
And then suddenly I had to begin to think about what to do. And I did a couple of art courses. I really hated them because you just have to do all this crap I didn't want to do. I just wanted to draw pictures. But I didn't know what else to do. And so I applied to art school. So I essentially went back to college as an undergraduate. I spent 3 more years in college. I liked college, so I went for 7 years. And I have 2 degrees, an AB, because my original college is pretentious, and they had it in Latin. So it's Artist Baccalorum or whatever the heck it is. And I have a BFA from the Rhode Island School of Design. And while I was at RISD, let me start that over again. When I was at Amherst College in Massachusetts for paleo. And while I was there, I discovered Marvel Comics. I hadn't read so many comics in senior year, in high school. A little, I did read some. But I discovered Marvel Comics. That's right when Jack and Stan and Ditko and all those guys were hitting their stride. And within 3 months of discovering them, I was buying all the Marvel comics there were, which, back then, 11 titles at 20 cents a piece or 15 cents or whatever. You could afford it, even in college. And by the time I got to RISD, I wasn't reading as many of the Marvel comics, but I was interested in starting to draw them. I'd drawn a few little fragments at Amherst, and then I began drawing them a little more seriously at RISD. And eventually, I did a comic over 2 years. It became my degree project, and it became my portfolio when I came to New York looking for work.
That was Star Slammers, right?
That's right. So I did slide into it, but you look backwards, it seems, oh yeah, this and then this and then this and then this, and it all seems very logical. And when you're living it, you have no idea. Every day is the new adventure, and you don't have any idea. I'm thinking, I could be working at McDonald's in like a week. I'm going to have to do something.
I'm thinking that now. So,
but it worked out well.
So, okay. So, Wheezy, I've got this little timeline here where I'm like jumping back and forth to you guys because for me, you guys sort of converged on X Factor where you both were like working together, and that's where I kind of, I was a big X Factor fan, but we'll get to that. I'll gush about that in a minute. But so you were at Warren in the early to mid 70s, and I got to assume this is where you met Wrightson and Chaikin and the whole gang that were, or is that not, or did you know them before that?
I knew a lot of people before. I had been married to Jeff Jones,
right?
And we had we were one of the place where we had a comic book group, First Fridays, where the first Friday of every month we had, a party essentially at somebody's house. And mostly it was at our house. We had an apartment in Manhattan. It was very centrally located. So, I had a batch of friends, several of whom I think Bernie may have lived in our building. Kaluta may have lived in our building. I can't even remember now who lived where. So I knew people from the comics community before I went to Warren. Okay. It just hadn't occurred to me to apply to any of the comic book companies and actually work there. I wanted to work in publishing. That was one of my goals. Right. But I was in magazine publishing at that point, and it didn't occur to me until my friend suggested it that I, hop over and join all my pals. So
you have more to talk about, right? You can talk about work after work. So right. How did you get then from editing at Warren over to Marvel? When did that occur?
Well, Jim Shooter called me up and invited me. I had several conversations with Jeanette Kahn earlier when I was an assistant editor at Warren, and then when Bill DeBay, who was the editor, left, I took over the line as the editor of that line. Right. Jeanette Kahn called me up a couple of times and asked me to come over and work at DC, but I wasn't ready to. I was having so much fun at Warren. It was I got to run a lot of stuff. I didn't have a lot of supervision, I'm afraid.
That's the best way, right? You gotta just
I loved it. I loved it. Warren would come in, just particularly during the summer, which is like about 6 months worth of time, about every couple of months he'd come in and he would yell at us about all the things we had done wrong while he was gone, and then he'd go away again. I mean, it was almost ceremonial. You know how in the forest you've got a band of gorillas, and the big gray major gorilla will wander off into the woods, and he'll, I don't know, forage for whatever he's doing, and then he'll come back and he'll knock people around just to prove that make sure they remember that he's the king, right? This is pretty much Warren's approach. And then he would go away again, and we would get to do whatever we want to do. I got to run, I ran experiments on my readers to find out how you manipulated letters columns. Since you could make people write positive or negative reviews by what letters you published, because people who wrote letters wanted their letters published, and if you wrote negative letters, then you would get more negative, and if you published positive letters, you'd get more positive. So that was fun. I did a sports. It seemed to me that the demographic for comic readers in sports, which were young men, right. Should have there should be an overlap between horror comics and sports. So I did a couple of sports horror comics that didn't sell that well. So obviously the comic readers weren't sports fans particularly.
That was in Creepy Magazine, wasn't it? Or was it Eerie? It was one of those two. Yeah. I remember those covers.
Yeah, that was fun. I did what was the other one? Oh, I began getting a lot of letters. I think it was during one of our negative comics phases, or negative letters phases, where about people complaining because the stories were so easy to figure out. I read the first page of that story, and I knew how it was going to end. And I said, "All right, people, we're gonna have a contest." So I published, I think there were probably maybe six stories without the ending. And I said, the first person who guesses all of the stories wins whatever prize we were offering. And that one sold well. And we got, oddly enough, and we got lots of letters. And out of all the letters, there was one person who guessed all the endings. I mean, I didn't even cheat. I think three of them they were real easy to figure out what the ending was going to be. And there were two that were a little bit more difficult, and one that was, harder. Mm-hmm. And one person figured them all out. One person figured all of them out, but one, and everybody else didn't. So I published. I published that information, and I didn't have to hear about how everybody could figure out the endings for a while at my letters pages. I mean, it's a crazy way to actually. I mean, can you imagine a publisher just turning you loose to do that kind of craziness?
Yes.
Also, I will say, I think the subsequent issue, at some point after the letters had come in, I think Wheezy ran the last page of each of the stories.
Oh, of course I did. Yes, of course I did that.
You got the page, and you could see the complete story and see how it all turned out.
Yeah, there you go.
I remember that. That was really funny. But
so I can't imagine Marvel or DC going, go ahead, do that, Wheezy. Let us know how it turns out. That's
right. And then can you imagine Jeanette Kahn calling me up after I pulled craziness like this and saying, "Come work for me," or Jim Shooter saying, "Come work for me"? But yes, I did.
So you just felt at that point it was a better opportunity to, was it just a better move?
I really felt like Warren was getting bored with comics. He was coming in less and less. I mean, as little supervision as I really felt I had initially, he obviously just wasn't really interested in the comics anymore, in the magazines. And maybe I was getting a little bored myself. It was getting to be too easy. So when Shooter called me up, and I played volleyball. I think that was before I went to Warren, wasn't it?
That's right.
I played volleyball with the Warren, with the Marvel guys, because I was seeing Walter at the time, living with you, right?
We were living together by that time.
I can never remember the sequence of things. I'm really bad at sequencing. Luckily, Walter's very good at it.
Wheezy went to work for Warren in 1974.
There you go.
She became a senior editor in 1976, and she was hired by Shooter at the beginning of 1980. So the first work day of 1980, which was, I think, maybe the 2nd or 3rd of January, she went to work for Marvel. And we were playing volleyball around 77 or 78. in the summer like madmen. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. It was a great way to relieve it. Shooter saw to it that he was part of it as well. So he had Marvel buy a net and buy a ball. And we just stashed those in the closet at Marvel. At the time, Marvel was about 2 blocks south of Central Park, the southeastern corner. So every day in the summertime when the light lasted, somebody would grab the net, they'd grab the ball, they'd troop over there from Marvel. A bunch of other freelancers like me would show up. We'd meet in a sheep meadow. We'd set the volleyball net up, and then some of those extra people would come over and want to join. So we eventually had to rotate people, and then we had 9 people on a team, plus 3 or 4 people that would rotate in and out because you had to rotate. There were so many people, and we played volleyball like furies. Loved doing it. It was a great way to. And then on the weekend, Louise and we lived next to Central Park over on the west side. So we would take the ball and the net home, and then we'd go back out at a prearranged time on the weekends. We'd set the net back up, ready to show up again, and we'd play on the weekends. So we just played like fury. But it meant you got to know a lot of people.
I did. I got to know Shooter and a lot of the guys at Marvel at that point. So probably, I was comfortable moving over there. I went there for several reasons. It was just, a bigger pond. And really, I really like the Marvel comics. And I like the people. I like everything about Marvel. It was pretty great.
All right, we're moving back and forth through time here, so you'll have to forgive me here. But I do have a confession here to make to Walter that I'm kind of embarrassed about, but I'm going to share this with you guys. Okay, now this just came out in hardcover, and this was your first big thing, right? I mean, as you described, it kind of put you on the map in comic land, right?
Yes.
I never read this until just a month ago.
I'm fine with that.
I was completely aware of it. I just had never got around to reading it, and it's really good. So congratulations, and Archie did a terrific job on that. But I enjoyed looking at it because I could see like some really interesting storytelling things that you were doing even back then on your early jobs that obviously you would grow with and would get better and more innovative and interesting as you went along. But even in this early stuff like Manhunter, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's really cool. So I apologize for taking, 30, 40 years to read it, but I did finally read it. So I think this is a quote I read in, this is a paraphrase of a quote, that this basically sort of, you were able to get regular work after this, and that you sort of became somebody. Now, the interesting thing to me was following your career after that point is you jumped around a lot, and you did a lot of different projects. You were, and this is one that, if I can click my 6 buttons again, that I think maybe was the first time I really discovered your stuff and was fully aware of it as a young lad. And because you had done, you'd done like Hercules Unbound, right, for DC, and you had worked on Battlestar Galactica, which you, I believe, wrote and drew some of that, correct? And
I did. I did Alien right in the middle of Battlestar Galactica. I took some time off, took 5 months off, did this, and then went back to Galactica, and I wrote some of the last ones.
How did this come about, this Alien adaptation?
John Workman was the art director at Heavy Metal. Julie Simmons Lynch was the editor. They had gotten the rights to do Alien, and of course, nobody had any idea it was going to become what it became. Right. They had the rights to it. They wanted to do a graphic novel at a time when there really weren't graphic novels in America. They just wasn't. Right. It wasn't a thing over here, and so John thought that it would be neat if he got Carmine Infantino to pencil it and got me to ink Carmine. And I don't know if he'd seen it or not. I inked 3 Carmine jobs for Wheezy when she was still at Warren, toward the end of her time at Warren, when Carmine left DC and was doing a lot of work for Warren. So I'd ink some of those. And he called me. He tried to call Carmine, couldn't reach him. I don't remember. Maybe back then we didn't all have answering machines or, anything of that sort. And so he called me up, and we talked about it. And I may have put myself forward as maybe penciling it as well, just from our chat. I do not remember how that worked out, but that's what happened. And then while we were talking about it, I had not done any writing at that point. I had helped some of the artists or writers I'd worked with. I had helped with plotting. So, and I learned an enormous amount from Archie. And the early plots were all Archie. The later plots were almost all Archie, and I was kibitzing. I learned, so I had a little input, not a lot. I mean, I learned a little bit. I learned a lot. I kibitzed a little, and so it didn't really occur to me. I didn't get into comics as a writer. I still feel I'm faking it at that deal.
Storytelling, right? I mean, I've always looked at it as being. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I've always looked at it as like there's writing, like if you're writing a novel or something, right? Like I wouldn't even go near something like that. But then there's sort of entertainment writing, which is scripts, screenplays, comics, things like that. And it's kind of a different animal, because it works so much with the visuals.
It is. I mean, in this case, what happened was when I was talking to John about it, apparently, John remembers this, I suggested getting a hold of Archie as the writer, the guy to adapt the screenplay. John liked the idea, so he got in touch with Archie. Archie was game to do it. He must not have been working as an editor anywhere at the time. And so we started working on that at the end of 78. The movie came out in May of 79. And the book had to be out in time to be out in stores when the movie came out. So I ended up drawing furiously for about 4 months, almost 5 months. Well, 4 actually. And we had to get the book colored as well. I colored the first 8 pages. And then I could see I was not going to be able to complete the art and color it.
Was that all watercolor? Was that all done in watercolor?
What we did was we had photostats made of all the Heavy Metal made photostats for me that are smaller than the originals, but a little larger than the printed size. So it would still reduce down, but it would take less time to color something that was smaller than the original page. And so we got our daughter and one of her friends to glue all these stats down on chipboard, just a heavy cardboard, so they wouldn't wrinkle. Just used rubber cement. And one of the other girls, one of their other friends, she was not interested in doing that, so she didn't do that. But Ruth and Julie did paste everything down for us. And then Wheezy and 2 other friends of mine, Polly Law, who was out of continuity at the time, and Deb Pedler, who was a close friend who had gone to Pratt, and her husband had been Wheezy art director at Warren when she was there for a while, fresh out of Pratt. And so we got a hold of Deb. She knew color. And so the 3 of them did the bulk of the rest of the coloring. I colored 1 more page later. They all colored it early on. I don't know if I could do this now. I could have told you who colored which page because each of them used a little different color key. Great. Polly's were more complex. Deb's had a lot of gray in the color, and Wheezy had a lot of saturated color. And then, as they could see what the other one was doing as we went along, the colors actually began to kind of fold together more. And by the end of the book, I'm not sure I could tell who was doing what color. But what I did was everybody got a complete scene. So if the color key changes, it changes with the scene in the book rather than being right in the middle where suddenly it goes from bright color to gray color in a single moment. And so we worked like furious on that. I remember that we had an apartment on the West Side. I remember that our dining room table was covered in used McDonald's styrofoam burger containers and empty Dixie cups. And we had no time to do much of anything except work. And so I don't know how we fed Julie. I'm not sure how that worked out.
Lots of pizza, I think.
Lots of pizza, maybe. I think how that worked. And I think we did about a third of the book in like the last week and a half. I don't know how that worked out. I'm still stunned by it. But we got it out. We got it into the office in time I think I turned it in, and 4 or 5 days later, I had a dummy in my hand, a printed dummy in my hand. It was that close to the edge. And one of the things that book taught me, if you go to the end of the book, I don't think in the beginning so much, most American comics back there didn't have bleeds. You could do it in a magazine format, but you couldn't do it in a comic book format.
Right.
I'm not sure why. I think we were largely told, oh, it costs more money. But in my old age, I think, I just have to trim the damn pages.
Right.
Why would it cost more money just to print a little larger image? But whatever it was. But in this graphic novel format, I did have the option of using bleeds. So I did some of there are 2 or 3 really big, full double-page spreads. When you see the derelict ship and the alien to start with, that giant U shape, I've got a double-page spread there. I think that's a bleed all the way around. When the Nostromo takes off from the planet, it's a big shot, couple of inserts. And at the end, I got to the point where the way the book was laid out and the way I had to match the movie, I had 4 pages to do the entire lifeboat scene. I think I had 1 page where everything where the Nostromo the lifeboat takes off, Nostromo blows up. And then I've got 4 pages to cover Ripley putting down the cat and getting into her chair at the control panel and starting to get going. And then you get the shot of the alien hand that's sort of sitting, lying in the corner in the wall, and she flips. She has to hop into the locker. She's already kind of stripped down. She tries to figure out what to do about it. She puts on her spacesuit. She gets back out. She sits down again. They're very conveniently, there's a little steam valve right there, so she can go where the alien is. She can go and get the alien to come out. And she's got her harpoon gun by then. And the alien climbs out and it starts coming up behind her. And just as about to grab her, she hits the button and opens the door behind them, also conveniently placed. And she whirls around and fires the harpoon into the stuff I didn't think of at the time. I just went with it and fires the harpoon to its belly. It gets blown out the door. She slams the door shut. The gun gets caught in the doorway. So now the alien's being dragged behind the lifeboat, and it's starting to climb its way back in. But it climbs in one of the engine nacelles, and she can see this. So she just goes bam and hits the engine starter, and it blows the thing away. And then I don't remember if they showed her climbing into the sleep, what was the cat's name? I always forget. Sorry, those of you viewers out there going, you should know the name. I don't remember.
Well, they probably know. They'll let us know if they know.
Somebody will. But she puts the cat in one sleep bed and she climbs in the other. And then maybe it's in the same one. I think she's sleeping with the cat. And they're asleep, and as the thing drifts off and heads toward the frontier. And that's 4 pages. So I didn't want it to feel too crammed. I mean, I wanted to feel somewhat claustrophobic. That's the way the movie felt. Right. But I wanted to feel a little elbow room in some of these sequences. And so what I did was, for storytelling purposes, if you go back and look at those pages, some of the panels bleed out. Yeah. Jonesy, thank you very much.
Yeah, I knew it was something easy at the end.
Some of the pages bleed and some of them don't. And not pages, the individual panels. And I bled panels where I felt it should feel like a little more room. And I did not bleed panels where I wanted it sort of tied more tightly together. And so I learned about how to use bleeds in those 4 pages from a storytelling point of view. And I have done that ever since. I will make some pages all bleeds, but I will often make a panel a bleed, but not the rest of the page, because I want the eye to follow the action. And then it goes off the page as if the action continues on beyond the visibility of the reader, the vision of the reader. I want to imply that. So I learned a lot from that book.
Excellent. Well, you guys, I don't know how long you're willing to stay with me, but I'm like not even halfway through my questions. So but I'm going to try and
I'll give you shorter answers.
Okay. No. I love this. This is why I want you guys on. You guys are just like fountains of knowledge, and it's just wonderful. But so I'm going to skip X-Men Teen Titans and go right to this. Now, Weezy,
I've never talked about that before.
Yeah, I know, but there's something about this that I want to get to beyond just the stuff you've talked about a million. Well, you probably have talked about it a million times anyway. But Weezy, obviously, you were at Marvel at this time, and this was what, 83, right, or 82?
83.
83. Okay. Now, were you, Walter? Were you like big into Norse mythology before you took this on, or did you become big into Norse mythology once you took this on?
No, I was a fan before I saw the Thor comic when I was in college. My parents had a book of Norse mythology of stories. I discovered I love mythology in general, so I read Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse mythology. some other. It was harder to find what would then have been regarded as more exotic countries. So I wasn't able to track down a lot of Japanese stories or Chinese stories or whatever. But I found what I could, and I really enjoyed the stories. So I knew something about Norse mythology. I'm not a scholar. I just know some of the stuff I've read. And I knew about it when I discovered an issue of Thor 113, Journey of Mystery 113, I think it was, which is the Grey Gargoyle's Return.
Yeah.
Jack and Chick Stone and Stan. And I read that comic in one of my friend's rooms my freshman year in college, so it would have been 65. And I was thrilled to discover there was a comic book about Thor. I loved it. I didn't care he didn't have red hair. I didn't care it wasn't exact like the myths. I just thought, dang. So I began, that's where I got into Marvel. I was able to track down the book. I started reading it regularly about 5-6 months later when I could find it regularly. And that's why I began buying all the Marvel comics. So I'd read comics before. I knew Norse mythology before, but Thor is really what brought all that stuff together. And
did you seek this job out?
So again?
Did you seek this job out, or did someone come and say, hey, Walter, would you like to take over Thor?
Mark Grunwald asked me if I would be willing to take over the book. I had not. I was just a fledgling writer at the time. I had written maybe 6 or 8 stories is all. I wrote 4 of the last 5 Battlestar Galacticas. That's my first writing of issues in comics, of actual comic book issues. I had written a graphic novel of the Star Slammers that Marvel published, which was about 60 pages long. So it's about 3 comics. So I had 4 Galacticas, 3 Star Slammers equivalent. That might have been about it. It might have been those 7 stories. But Mark and I, in the old days, and I don't know how this would work now, but in the old days, you had to live in the city to turn your work in, more or less. Some of the old pros could live out on the island, or they lived in other parts of the country and sent stuff in. There was no overnight delivery, so it was, what was it called? Special handling or something like that, which might get the stuff in 3 or 4 days from Colorado. And but otherwise, you lived in the city because you walked into the office, you turned in your work, you might pick up an assignment, and of course, I would go in and bother all the editors just chatting. I would just walk in and shoot the breeze. And Mark and I would have talked about Thor. I had actually written a Thor story as a fan when I was in college. I had come up with an idea for a big Thor story, a long story. And that morphed into the Soderstag. That morphed into my first 13 or 14 issues of Thor. But so Mark got a hold of me one day and he said, would you be interested in writing and drawing Thor? My understanding, I don't have any figures to back this up. My understanding is the book wasn't doing very well. And that meant that if the book had tanked, people would have said, well, that book was going down the tubes anyway. What can you do?
So
and if it did well, they'd say, wow, Simonson, a genius. So I can't refer to the genius idea. But it ended up doing pretty well. And, it worked out well for me.
Now, Louise, I got to ask you, from the editorial side, there must have been some conversation about breaking the title logo. Was there ever did anybody ever say, yeah, we can't do that? Or were you guys just willing to go for it, man? That's a great idea.
I think that, why not?
No, nobody said boo.
It was the Wild West back in those days.
Yeah, it was.
As I was, it was kind of demonstrated from my Warren career.
Well, you wouldn't have a problem with it, right?
You didn't have as much control. Wasn't from the top down as much. Certainly Shooter exerted control,
right?
But he was flexible about that kind of thing, and really he let his editors pretty much do what they thought was a good idea. So Walter, as far as you know, there was no problem with.
No, not on that.
In fact, I think they loved the idea because it was one of these things where what it did was it gave readers the information that something big was happening and that things were about to change.
Yeah.
Well, that was really my idea. My idea was to try and do that. It was one of the things I did not realize when I decided to do it is that was the last logo Marvel had in place. That was the original logo from the beginning of the Thor comics.
Really?
Yeah, they had brought back the Fantastic Four logo, but they had several other logos in between. So the only one that had been consistently on the books from the beginning of when it became Thor when Journey into Mystery became Thor, and actually probably from before that, was this logo. And I don't think I knew that. Nobody seemed to care. I mean, Weezy's right. It was the Wild West. It was also very different. Editors themselves had a kind of power that I don't think they have now. I could be wrong about that. I haven't done a lot of work for Marvel and DC, but now it seems much more committee oriented. I'll give you a fast example of what wouldn't have happened 40 years ago, but it's the way it is now. And this is not a complaint about that. I just find this really funny. Now, I am old. I've been doing this a long time. There'll be a lot of guys editing at Marvel and DC who probably have no idea who the hell I am. I get it. But a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago by now, somebody at Marvel called me up. I don't remember his name, and if I knew it, I wouldn't tell you who it was. I don't know. Probably one of the assistants rather than a full editor. Not sure about that. And he asked me if I would be interested in writing and drawing a Thor annual. And I thought, well, that would be kind of fun. But I was busy doing probably Ragnarok. And I was concerned about the time it would take to draw it and pull me away from other stuff. So I said, well, how about if I write it? And he was going to suggest some artists to do it. And I said, well, if you're cool with it, let me talk to John Byrne. Let me see if John would be interested.
Oh.
So I called John up, and John initially thought, yeah, that'd be fun. So I got back to the guy and said, okay, how about me and John Byrne? And the guy essentially said, well, I need to check at higher levels. I can't make this decision myself. And that was kind of over a weekend. It's like maybe Thursday. By Friday, there was no answer. By Monday, there was no answer. By Tuesday, there was no answer. And somewhere in there, John just thought, maybe I don't want to do this. I mean, like working for Marvel in quite this way. That's between him and Marvel. So I don't know that would have happened anyway if they'd gotten back to us within 24 hours. But I sort of love the idea that you could be offered a John Byrne, Walter Simonson, Thor annual, and maybe not.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not really
Let me get back to you on that. So that's in the old days, and now we were hotter in the old days, so I get that too. But in the old days, it's hard to imagine that anybody would have said, let me think about that for a while, and I'll let you know.
We'll take that in committee and let you know in a couple of weeks.
That's right. And it's a different world. What can I tell you?
Okay. Now I'm gonna say some kind words about Wheezy here. I never read X-Men. Never did. I've always been sort of a contrarian my whole life. So everybody's like, "Oh, X-Men is great. You got to read that." I'm not reading it. Okay. But I saw X-Men, and I kind of, it was funny. There was, even when this was probably 84, 85-ish, maybe 86, somewhere in that neighborhood.
86, 87, something like that.
86, 87. And I started picking it up because I thought, oh, they got the old X-Men, and no one cares about them anymore. So I'll read this. And, and that's exactly how I was. And I kind of got attached to the book. And then, Wheezy, you didn't start writing this. You took it over. Is that correct? Or did you start writing?
I took it over with issue 5, maybe.
Yeah.
I think.
And I've got to tell you, you've always been one of my favorite writers because you had this great ability to balance the character stuff, which is so important to getting people to keep coming back, but not neglect the action and the whole big adventure of everything. You were just able to navigate those waters so well. And I always looked, once I read your X Factor stuff, I always looked for your name on. I said, if Louise Simonson wrote that, I'm picking it up and checking it out. And so I just have great admiration for your writing abilities.
That's really sweet. Thanks.
You're very welcome and well-deserved. So you're writing this book, and I want to say, was it Jackson Geist? Was he drawing the interiors for a while?
Jackson was.
How did we get you and Walter teamed up on this book?
I think I don't know what happened. Bob Harris was the editor and was handling a lot of that stuff. When I got on the book, Jackson, I think, decided to, do a couple of more issues, then would get off.
Yeah, that's right.
And did Bob Harris, thought it was a great idea to ask Walter to do it. I don't know if I suggested it or if Bob asked you, it was Bob's idea. I don't remember whose idea it was, but it was a good one. And you came on with issue 11, I think.
Issue 10.
Issue 10.
And there were a couple of fill-ins. I think Mark Silvestri, some of his early
Mark
work
Silvestri did a couple of fill-ins.
Was an issue or two.
Right.
So there were a couple of those in there as well. So there wasn't a regular artist after Jackson got off. And I do not remember whether, I'm sure Louise, I talked about it, and I thought it'd be fun to work with Louise. We had actually done some work earlier where, thanks to nepotism, she had got me my first writing jobs in comics, where she was editing Battlestar Galactica. And when Roger McKenzie was getting off the book, again, like Thor, it wasn't selling very well. I couldn't save that one. But it was she asked me if I wanted to write it, at that point. I thought, sure, at this point, I'm willing to take a crack. I'd helped out in the plotting on that book somewhat. So I took a crack at it. I really enjoyed it. And I got to say, recently there was one of those art editions that came up from Dynamic Forces of my old Galactica work. And it contains all 4 of the issues that I wrote. And it also contains the Cylon Mark III story, which was a little earlier, that Roger wrote, that I penciled and inked. It's the only issue I penciled and inked as well. And that was a nice story. And so it has all those stories in it. I had to go back. I went back and reread them all when I was scanning everything. And boy, I look back and I think, man, I'm not sure I can write this well now. It just, it's very breezy. It's kind of light and breezy and fun. And they aren't bad issues. I didn't save the book, but they weren't bad issues. And so I don't know I finished that up. I did Thor. I think I was maybe ready to get off Thor, drawing it. I did it for 2.5 years, writing and drawing every issue with a couple of fill-ins here and there. And I was just getting kind of tired. I still wanted to write it, but it's a lot of work to draw it. So X Factor offered me the chance to pencil a book, which takes less time than penciling and inking. Sure. And I wasn't writing it. And I got to live with a writer so I could see what was going on. And so that's, somewhere in there, we had worked, she had edited Galactica. So we'd worked together on that stuff where she was my editor. I don't know if we've done anything before that, before X Factor, after. We worked together.
There was some stuff at Warren.
Oh, yeah. When I inked, I did 2 jobs for Warren, pencils and inks. Well, pencils, and then Terry Austin inked one. Bob Toomey, I think, wrote those. And then I did one sort of sequel that I penciled and inked. And then, so that was for Wheezy. And then I also inked those 3 issues of Carmine I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And that's about 10 years before this. So we had worked together some before, but not where she was writing and I was drawing. And I just felt it was a neat opportunity to take advantage of that. So
did you guys collaborate, or did you just write the script, go over to Walter and go, here you go, and you just kind of would take the script and go with it, or was it more of a collaborative, or did it change as?
I wrote the script and handed it to Walter, but we have a strange way of working where Walter really just wants to know the action. He doesn't really care at that point what the characters are, feeling or any of that stuff. Right. It was, and then he'll do these little scribbles that are thumbnails, on typewriter-sized paper. Walter can explain more about that. And they'll come back to me, and at that point, I write the script from the thumbnails.
Okay.
So Walter has the script, and then he magically turns the thumbnails into pages. But he knows what people are going to say at that point and how they'll feel and what their expression should be.
Right.
And it's very effective. It's a very effective way of working. You get the character and you get the action, all that stuff that you like. That's one way of achieving it.
And I will say, just to clarify, when Wheezy says, she said script originally, but it's really the plot. She writes the plot, and she is flexible enough to write different kinds of plots for different artists, depending on what they want. Brett Blevins always wanted to know what people were thinking and what they were feeling. And so for the New Mutant scripts that Wheezy would do for Brett, she would write a plot and she would have all that stuff in there. And I just wanted the choreography. I wanted to know what the dance was. And then I would do the dance in the thumbnails. Wheezy would write, and they were pretty loose. So occasionally she'd call down from upstairs and say, "Is this a pizza or a telephone?" Not sure I'm looking at here. I would say.
I think there was one where was this a human or a helicopter? I think was the was the question.
So and I would say, "Oh, that's," and I would draw a little more. That's really a helicopter. I'll just draw that in. And but she would script it from that, and then that way when I would blow the thumbnails up on a Xerox machine to about 135%, which will take the size I was drawing on the copier paper up to the size at about 10 by 15 roughly. And then I lay that in the light box. I trace off the panels. I square up the panel borders, and then I trace off the layouts. And I usually trace them off very lightly. My idea is that I want to keep everything as loose as possible up until the point where I've got all the words and all the pictures, and I can go, okay, this is the way it should be. And we would, back then there were lettering on the board still. Right. So we would send the very loose layouts, but with the borders all squared up. And I'd spot all the copy. I'd put tracing paper over the artwork, and I would indicate where all the balloons and the captions and the sound effects and the titles were going to be. Everything was numbered in the script and numbered on the overlays, and would go off to the letterer. I keep forgetting who did Joe Rose do that stuff on X Factor? It wasn't John.
Probably, yeah, I'm sure it was Joe.
I don't remember. But we sent it off to him, and I'd get it back, and it would have all the sound effects, all the stuff, sound effects, balloons, balloon shapes, all that stuff, captions, titles, and the borders of the panels were all done in India ink. And then I would sit down on the light box with some more copier paper, and I would, if I had a figure, I'd lay the copier paper on top of my layout. I would draw it up tightly, or fairly tightly. I do a structure drawing, I call it, where I work out all the stuff with all the scribbles to get the gesture and the anatomy and all the rest of that stuff kind of put together. And then I would reverse it, put that underneath the paper, and trace it off, and draw as well, in order to get as clean a drawing as I could of the figure that I wanted, or the background I wanted, or whatever. So that Bob Wyachek, who was inking that book, would have a clean figure to ink. It wouldn't have all my construction lines all mixed in with everything else.
Seems to me that Neil Adams used to do that as well. You do the small layouts and then blow them up and kind of light table to clean them up. It seems to me I read something like that when he was at Continuity. That was kind of how he worked. I don't know if it was a regular thing or not.
Oh, Neil?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the scary thing about Neil was that he would take a piece of typewriter paper back then, but he would fold it into quarters. And then he would draw the entire page on this quarter of a sheet. And it's just all completely realized. Like my stuff is, here's the circle for a guy's head. I might put 2 dots and a line to indicate, is he smiling? Is he frowning? Are his teeth showing? That was about it. And Neil, all this rendering, and they were gorgeous. They were really beautiful. So you could have practically blown those up and inked them as they were. But he did do stuff like that, at least in the old days. I don't know about now. Yeah.
So now, Wheezy, were you still editing at the time? Because you were doing a lot of writing this in the late 80s. You weren't editing it.
No, I wasn't. I had quit editing at that point, I think. I don't remember when I quit editing.
The end of 1983.
There you go. Okay. The end of 1983, I quit editing. I had done Power Pack, I think, and I had been given New Mutants, and maybe there was a couple of Spider-Man things that I had written, and I just found that I was bored with editing at that point. It had gotten too easy. She had hired a whole batch of new editors and cut everybody's workload in half. And I didn't think the workload was onerous to begin with. So I just didn't have enough to do. So I thought I'd just, quit editing and start writing. So I did.
Well, in the pre-computer days, Wheezy was a genius at being able to keep track of like 10 different books, or 11 or 12 annuals, monthly books. And of where everything was. What was being lettered, where the pencils were, where the plots were. She'd keep all that stuff completely straight.
Yeah, I could keep that stuff in my head. I can't really anymore. I can barely keep my own schedule in my head.
Now, after your stint at Marvel, and I think I had talked to you several years ago about this, because did you get into children's books for a while after comics? Were you doing some work in children's books? Or am I imagining that?
I did kids' books. Oh gosh, I can't. I think it was after I'd gone to DC.
Oh, okay.
I got mad at Marvel and stomped off to DC to
That's right. You worked
do
Superman
Superman,
title.
Man of Steel.
That's right. Yeah.
And and then once I finished doing, or while I was doing Superman, actually, one of the book editors at DC asked me to start doing some kids' books, and I enjoyed those. So then I moved into, I sort of segued into doing that for a while.
Yeah, because I remember one of the times I stayed at your guys' house, and yes, I'm telling everyone in the chat, I got to stay at the Simonsons' house twice. You guys are so nice. I really
and you can
appreciate
even come again if you'd like. We still have room for you.
Thank you.
But you want to see proof of vaccination if you come again.
You won't let me in the house without proof of vaccination.
Otherwise, forget it, pal.
Oh. And we stayed up super late going through all your pages. And that was the thing. It was like, you guys, I was, I think when I stayed there, it was sometime in the mid to late 90s. So I was still in my 30s. And we were looking at pages, going through your Thor pages, because, you'd stacks and stacks of pages, right? And you were putting me to sleep, man. It was 4 a.m. And I was like, you were spinning yarns and we were talking about the art and everything. And you guys were just like 4 a.m., and I'm like, I gotta go to bed, man. I can't. But when I had talked to you, Louise, about, because I was thinking about some children's books ideas. And I think it was you that told me, you said, don't do children's books. There's no money in children's books. I think that was the advice that you steered me at that conversation we had. So that's why and I don't know that I pursued the conversation much beyond that. So I was curious if you had done a few books or something that at least gave you the impression that you should warn me against pursuing that. So
I think I did about 30 or 40 of them. So the money couldn't have been that bad. I think it was the companies I was working for. Honestly, it depends on who you're doing work for. If you work for Scholastic, you get more money than, say, if you work for, I don't know, Capstone or something.
Did you find your time at DC? Well, let's see. How would I want to put this? How was it? Let me put it this way. How was it working at DC different from the situation at Marvel? Say before things got sketchy at Marvel, but let's say your heyday at Marvel, then you go over to DC and you were part of the Superman group working on the Superman books. How was the dynamic different, or was it? Well,
the dynamic was different partly. I mean, honestly, Superman at that point was a Marvel book. It was just a DC book it was a Marvel book with a DC hero, a DC title. I mean, Mike Carlin was the editor, and he was wonderful. I mean, the problem, the good and the bad news with the Superman books is that there were 4 of them, and then eventually 5. And each book was treated as a chapter in a longer arc. I mean, which we as creators controlled to a certain extent, because we controlled it as a team, I guess, where, we would have a big meeting every year and we would work out a year's worth of continuity. And then, they would be divvied up for, I don't know, I didn't even know what the sequence was, but among the 4 books, and it would be, because of course they came out in order, like first week, second week, third week, fourth week of the month. So that you would do the chapter that fell in your month, your week. So it was a different way of working.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while to get used to it, because I was very used to having total control of my stories, to the extent that writers ever have control of anything. Right. And it took me probably maybe 3-4 months to actually begin to understand how the dynamic actually worked. But once I understood it, it was actually kind of a fun way to work. I mean, I was working with one of my 5 favorite artists there, was John Bogdanov.
Mm-hmm.
I love John's work. Yeah. So, because the team was so large, there were sometimes personality conflicts.
Sure.
But, mostly it was pretty great. And I have to say, Carlin was a brilliant editor. mean, the fact that a whip and a chair, I'm telling you, it was like running a 3-ring circus, 4-ring circus, actually, since there were 4 books, you know, where everyone was kept in, it had the news. We were all clear about what the other guys were doing. You had a week to get, as a writer, you had a week to get your plot in, because in another week, it was going to be time for the next guy to do his plot based on what you had. And the, you know, few lines of continuity that we had worked out, you know, but in that context, you could do the story any way you wanted. As long as then when your story was done, you passed your chapter on to the next person who would then write the next chapter in, you know, any way they wanted. So it was an interesting dynamic. And actually, I think it was effective. We got a little tired of it, particularly when we were working on particularly the Death of Superman storyline, which was very intense.
I can imagine.
And to work in lockstep for, I don't know, was it a year? It was a long time. You know, really complete lockstep was a little exhausting. So I was really glad to get to the point where Superman was dead. Sorry, Superman. And we were able to then split up into different, a little bit of a bit more separate continuities for a little while, where everybody had their own Superman to deal with. You know, it was much looser continuity, a connection between the books at that point.
Right. I always thought that, you know, would have had to have been, I mean, I experienced it obviously, you know, in my career, but being a writer or being editorial and writer and juggling the continuity of so many books must have just been a royal pain in the butt every month. I mean, that was just like you go in and it's a given, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. And honestly, I don't think Carlin was amazing at, you know, trying to keep the teams heading in the same direction. And the assistant who was, oh gosh, Chris Duffy was the assistant at that point. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, we had several other assistants who were great, whose job it was to get all of the material, including the art and the stories and the pencils and the inks, the lettered pages, to put together a package, Xerox everything, put together a package for everyone and send all of that information out to all the writers and artists every week. Can you imagine?
No.
I mean,
no, I can't.
I mean, just the logistics of creating something like that is amazing. And then of course Carlin had he had these little triangles in the corners of the books that numbered them consecutively, so that you would know what order to read the Superman books in, to read them in, you know, chapter by chapter by chapter. So I mean, it was a pretty wild way to work. I mean, I must have liked it because I did it for 9 years.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I stepped over you there. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. You know, I can tell when I'm talking. I can't always tell when you're talking at the same time. I was just going to say it. I must have liked it because I did it for about 9 years. So I guess it was
amazing. You know, it just that it was that long. That I mean, because I remember, you know, obviously I remember you being on the books and stuff. But when you kind of step back and look back at time and go, wow, I did that for 9 years. I mean, that's an amazing thing to think about.
It is really.
And it's, you know, and also this is a question I don't really ask people this much, but I know you guys, so I'm going to ask you that when you have, both of you, when you have been a part of so much really classic comic book history, right? And people don't just treat you, fans don't come up to you and treat you just like, oh, you're another artist. Yeah, I remember when you drew a couple issues of that. Right? You guys have done significant work in the industry. And so when you step back kind of and look back over your careers, do you just kind of take it in stride and go, that's just what I did? Or do you have a moment where you can go, wow, that's really amazing. I can't believe that. I don't mean this to make you guys like try to make you sound arrogant or anything, but do you ever that moment where, you know, like Michael Jordan might sit around and go, I was the greatest player ever. I mean, what did that feel like? You know, and it's so when you guys, you know, you guys were so significant, especially in the 80s. And then, of course, Weezy, what you brought to Superman in the 90s. But do you ever just sit back and have a moment where you go, wow, I really accomplished something in this career?
I think, wow, I was so lucky.
Really?
I do. I mean, I you know, it's maybe really easy to look at your stuff and think, oh, I was brilliant. But really, there's so many brilliant people in comics. Oh my God. You know, I'm more likely to read something somebody else wrote and think, oh man, what I'm doing is garbage. This person is so great. So yeah, no, I think how lucky I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it was a long time ago. You know, I'm always surprised anybody has ever heard of me, honestly.
You know, it's partly, I mean, also the web will, if you have any illusions of grandeur, the web will fix that after a while.
That's true.
So you'll get, a few years ago, somebody said, whatever happened to these guys? There were like 5 names. I was one of them. The rest of them are dead. So I thought, well, I'm dead to this guy. So, you know, many years ago now, when I did the Fantastic Four, and I had and I liked it when I did the Fantastic Four. But I had some kid, it was a high school kid, became a close friend, actually. He'll be amused by this. But he came up to me and he said, I don't like your Fantastic Four. Why is that? So that sort of gives you a rethink about your place in the firmament of comic book.
No, I suppose that's true. There's always those humbling experiences that go along with the highs, right? That kind of bring you back to reality. And so before I let you guys go, and honestly, I want you to know I'm not trying to get rid of you because I would keep you all day, but I'm guessing you probably don't want to stay all day. So let me ask you this. Talk a little bit about what you're up to right now, because I know, Walter, you were working on Ragnarok for like forever. Is that completed at this point, or are you still?
Oh no, I've got a ways to go. I took almost a year off because of the pandemic. I mean, for a while IDW shut down. I took on some commission work, which I never do. So I'm actually going to finish that up this week. Well, all but one piece this week, and I've got a big piece to do after that. So, and then I took on some oddball stuff. Louise and I had a chance to go back and do a couple of issues of X Factor again.
Oh, really?
The second one just came out. A 2-part story. It fits into her old continuity. It was after I got off the book by a couple of issues. I think it fits in after issue 42 or thereabouts. It's Art Adams. After I left the book, Art did 2 issues. And it fits in right after Arthur's 2 issues. So I got to draw, really, 2 issues of X Factor, go back to those old characters. Louise was writing them. It was a lot of fun, actually. It was really fun to do. So
X-Men Legends 3 and 4, I think.
That's right. So did those, and then I did a short Batman story with Tom King, which was a lot of fun. Nice to work with Tom. I got to know Tom the last few years. So, you know, it's nice to work with those young, hot writers. And it was just fun. It was, you know, so I've done some oddball stuff like that. And now I'm getting out of the end of the commissions. And I'm writing Ragnarok right now for the 4th arc, where Thor goes to Jotunheim and encounters more than he's bargained for when he gets there. But that, of course, is the nature of mythic stories.
How many pages is Ragnarok? How big of a, when this is complete?
Well, right now I've got 3 arcs that are out, 6 issues each. The Jotunheim, all the arcs are like 6 issues. You could collect them. It's a different dynamic than comics used to be. In some ways, I regret it because it would have been very difficult to do the Surtur story I did in Thor, which was 13 issues or 14 issues. It was an odd number. I mean, originally I was going to wrap it up with issue 350, and then I discovered the story was extending beyond that, so I just took 2 or 3 more issues to wrap everything up. That's harder to do now because you want to make stuff in these packages that they can redo. And the Jotunheim story, I have too many ideas for it. So right now, trying to sandwich it into 6 issues is proving to be challenging. But I'm not sure doing 12 issues would be the answer, because that's a lot of time spent on the ice drawings for people to look at.
Yeah, but the backgrounds are easier, right?
I've got to work that out. And I probably have, I would like ideally to do probably 4 or 5 more stories. I do have an ending in mind. And I think I'd like to do 4 or 5 stories and then wrap it up. but that will take me a while, and so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that all goes well.
Weezy, you got anything you want to throw in there?
Oh, let's see. Aside from the X Factor, over COVID time, I did a science fiction epic that was collected as a graphic novel called Hyperbreed for Sandy Carpenter.
Okay.
For Storm King. Storm King kids. It got moved over to the kids section because I think there weren't enough kids comics and it didn't have any sex. Plenty of violence though. Oh my God, blood flowed. But apparently that's okay. Then I did this X Factor thing. I'm doing a 5-part Power Pack miniseries with June Brigman, but I think that won't be out until probably the end of summer. And I think that's it. I think that's all I'm working on right now.
Before I let you go, I got one more. Okay, one more, then I'll let you go. Do you guys just sit back and are kind of blown away that the Marvel movies are using so much of your material? It's like Simonson and Starlin Marvel Universe. It seems like all the movies are stuff that you guys have done or Starlin's done. Does that just kind of like blow you away that you're like, oh,
I think maybe more Jim than me, but there's a lot of stuff a lot of stuff in the Thor films.
Right.
It's cool they're doing it. I have not seen all the Marvel movies by a long shot. There's a time, I was younger, I would have been wild to go see all this stuff. But now, having lived, eaten, and breathed comics for the last 50 years, going to a movie to see more comic book stuff, I don't know. I'm not as wild about it as I would have been. And what I want is a couple different film companies have done some of Wheezy's stuff, and they've done. I will say this: they don't like to bite the hand that feeds you, but they've done really bad jobs with her stuff, like really bad. And so when you see that, you think, well, yeah, I'm not wedded to this stuff. I don't have to watch this or worry about it. And it's not. I don't feel flattered that they managed to do a really bad job. And yet, most of the time when they do stuff like that, what we say to ourselves really is that they're just trying to make it better. So it's cool to see. I know they're doing Loki with the Time Variance Authority on Disney Plus, but we don't get Disney Plus, and I'm not going to buy it so I can watch the Time Variance Authority. I invented it, for God's sakes. I know what it's supposed to be like. So, when we get, right now we have Amazon Prime, we've got PBS Passport, which means we already have more television shows than we're ever going to be able to watch in the rest of our lifetimes.
And Netflix, don't forget Netflix.
And Netflix too. So I don't see running out and getting another 3 or 4 streaming services so I can have a million other things. I've had cable for years. There's a million things in cable I haven't watched. I have cable, so I don't have to watch stuff. The TV watches it for me. So, it's cool they're using it. I will say sometimes, like the TVA, I'm very surprised it showed up in a Marvel TV program. That was a surprise. I hope they do a decent job with it. I don't know if they are or not. But beyond that, I don't know if I'm flattered or not. I'd probably be flattered if on some of that stuff I was being paid. That would help. I have actually made more money on some of the stuff for the Marvel movies than I probably made doing certainly the comic books that created the material. So I'm very pleased about that, and I'm happy about that. But but on the other hand, look, I was old enough, so when Jack Kirby went to DC to create the Fourth World material,
right,
it was quite clear he had a major hand in creating the Marvel Universe. I don't think he had a solo hand, as some would argue. He did have a major hand in it.
Yes. And
he got, at the time, really nothing out of that other than his pay for doing the material. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of us who were young in comics in the early 70s, you could see that, well, if the companies can screw Jack Kirby, they can really screw any of us. And most of us, Howard Chaykin comes to mind instantly, we were in comics because we thought comics were going to die in about 10 years. We gave it about 10 years because sales were dropping. It's before the direct market appeared. And we wanted to do them, kind of almost at any cost. And we would do them, and then we'd have to go get real jobs when they died. Well, it turns out they didn't die for various reasons. But we also knew the job was dangerous when we took it.
Right.
So seeing this stuff, it's kind of neat that it's become other stuff. People who will never know my name or Wheezy's name will see properties we helped to create, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But that's certainly been true of, a great deal of the Marvel Universe. And I gather the Disney folks have gone back with the Kirby family and done some work with them to kind of settle some of that stuff, which if that's correct, I'm thrilled to hear it. So that would be good. But I don't look for that myself. I mean, I just, as I said, I knew the job was dangerous back when I took it. So I'm just happy to have been able to make a living, do a lot of stuff I've really enjoyed, come through comic books at a time Louise and I both think was a great time to be doing American comics.
Yes.
In the 80s, in the 70s and 80s was a great time because it was the Wild West. It was very free range, and you could really do a lot of the stuff you wanted to do and get paid for it, which wasn't so bad.
Well, I look at you guys as some of the defining forces that occurred in comics in the 80s, along with Frank Miller, and then, of course, Alan Moore a little bit towards the end, and, of course, John Byrne and Chris Claremont with the X-Men stuff. But you guys will always be immortalized as major contributors to this industry, especially for that decade. And I'm just a huge fan of you guys as people, and I'm a huge fan of your work. And the great thing about it is it never gets old. And thank goodness Marvel is publishing the Marvel Essentials, so we can go back and read that stuff whenever we want to if we don't have the actual comics. So I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your schedules and to spend a little time with me and talk about your careers. And the funny thing is here, I had questions. I really wanted to get into you guys in the same apartment building with Chaykin and Milgram and Wrightson, and then your studio, with all those guys. I guess I'll have to bring you back sometime and we'll just talk about that, just like crazy stories from back in your young days, back when you guys were all sharing apartments and studios.
Here's the short version about our Vigo Park when we were in the apartment with Milgram and I were roommates. Howard was on the same floor. Bernie was 2 floors below under Howard's apartment line. And we would get together about 3 in the morning. I would make popcorn. We'd all take a break. We'd sit around eating popcorn, shooting a breeze about everything. And then after we finished the popcorn, we'd all go back to work.
End of story. That's
end of story. And I knew, as I've said elsewhere, I knew at the time, I said, okay, these are the good old days right now. And I was not wrong.
Really? Were you really able to step outside that moment and go, you know what, I'm going to remember these times?
Oh, I'm sure. I was sure it was at the time, and it turned out to be. We had a lot of good old days, more than I think we had any right to expect. But it's certainly, that was a great time to be doing comics. The other story about that is that right then, one of the local TV channels in New York, I don't remember which one, 5 maybe, but they were showing a Bugs Bunny cartoon show. And they would run it twice a day. They would show a Bugs Bunny cartoon, then they would show a Warner cartoon, and then another Bugs Bunny cartoon. And that was the half hour. And they would show at 8 in the morning, they'd have the show, and they would show it at 4 in the afternoon. So Milgram and I would get up at 4 in the afternoon, and we would watch the 3 cartoons, and then get our day started, because we were giant Warner Brothers cartoon fans. And we would work all night, and we would watch the show at 8 in the morning, watch the 3 cartoons, and go to bed at 8:30 a.m. It was awesome.
I know. It's just like, oh, man, when you say the good old days, that's the kind of stories you think about.
When you're young and you can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it now.
No, couldn't do it now.
Amazing. Yeah.
So,
well,
thanks for having us, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Seriously, thank you so much. And you just doubled my viewership, and I really appreciate that.
Tell your viewers, I only just discovered the comments along the side, so I have not been reading them as we've been going along. I'm very sorry.
I didn't see those either.
I've been pulling out the
private chat, and then it says comments. You click on comments, and you get all these comments. Hey, Josh,
sorry,
you're quite welcome. I see Josh just left a comment.
No, I pulled a few of them out as they came up that were there wasn't a lot of questions. They were just mostly.
I saw a couple of them.
they're just kind of, hey, loved your guys' stuff. And so I put a few of those up there for you. Yeah, I think Josh typed in there to say hi to you. So
I saw that. I did see that.
But anyway, I have to keep going because I'm going to draw all day. This is like part of this con experience that I'm doing. So I get to go to work, but you guys can just bug out by hitting the, the X button up there in your, and I'll just keep on going. But
I do have a quick question for you,
yes,
which is this interview going to be like in a YouTube reservoir somewhere or whatever they do with that, where you can go back later and look at it?
It goes back on my YouTube channel where it's being broadcast right now. So people can go and see it anytime. It's archived there. And it'll also run on Facebook on my page. And I tried to put up links. I know I put one up on your Walter
I saw that.
appreciation page. And then both you guys have sent you links. So they should be able to watch them there, but at least they have the YouTube link in that if that doesn't work. But they can always go to my page on Facebook and watch it, as it just goes in forever.
All right.
So if
I'll probably go back and make sure the link to this is up just on my other pages so people can look at it if they want to.
So if we said anything stupid or embarrassing, it's going to be on the internet forever. So
I was hoping maybe you would just edit that out. It doesn't work. I did an interview once years ago on television. I've forgotten for who, maybe for like Fox Business News or something. We didn't say very much. But the next day I was at a convention, a local con in New York, and one of the dealers, I don't remember who it was anybody I knew, but he called me and said he saw our program and thought we did just fine. He said the major rule about stuff like that is do no harm. And I thought, well, so it seems to be good. So I just try to achieve that whenever I do stuff like this. Do no harm.
You can say as many stupid things as you want. Just don't insult anybody, and you'll be fine. So, and I try to avoid that like the plague as well.
Do that. That's a good plan.
Always comes back to haunt you when you do. So,
listen, Aaron, love to you and Shelley. Thanks very much for having us.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon, I hope.
Yes, in real life, one of these days.
Yep.
So let me see if I can find the button to get out of here now.
I'm hitting leave now. Bye, everybody.
See you later, sugar. Oh, leave studio. There it is. All right, I'm out of here too.
Okay,
Aaron,
well,
take care.
Thank you so much. See ya. All right. Hey, that was Walter and Louise Simonson. What a pleasure to have those guys show up and talk a while about their careers and their projects. And it's always difficult to interview people that have been interviewed 100 times before with and so you want to make sure you don't ask the same questions over and over again. So I tried to hit on the stuff that I knew people wanted to know about, but also kind of touch on some stuff that maybe hadn't been talked about as much. And X Factor was, of course, my favorite series that those guys worked on together. As much as I loved Thor, X Factor was the thing for me. And so anyway, now the seriousness is gone, right? Now we're back to just manic craziness. It's like 100 and freaking something degrees outside right now here. I mean, I'm in Oregon. It does not get that hot here usually. It's like Phoenix. And I'm upstairs and it's getting warm. I got the lights on me, but I'm still feeling dry enough to keep on going. Yeah, I got 100 million questions I wanted to ask him as well. So hopefully I'll finagle him to come back and we can talk about some more stuff. But it's one thing for me to sit here and talk for 4 hours. It's another thing to bring somebody on and expect them to sit there and to talk for 4 hours. But anyway, in case you're wondering, you dropped in, you're like, okay, that was great. Walter and Louise Simonson. Now who's this clown? Well, what you've tuned into is what I like to call Aaron. That's right, AaronCon 2021. We're at day 2. So what does this mean? This means I am trying to create a virtual con experience the best I can in my studio at home because we can't go anywhere. Although there will be some shows later this year, so I'm very excited about that. So what I have is I got stuff for sale. I'm going to do drawing. I'm going to tell really horrible jokes. And hopefully my wife will come back and spice the show up a little bit. That's absolutely true. My markers are, and you know what, Shelly, check this out. As kind of a belated Father's Day gift, she hooked me up with new sets of markers. So as they melt in my hands, it'll be with fresh ink. So that'll be cool. Mark says, look at this. It's 106. Let me try that again. It's 106 in Vegas. It is hotter than that here, which is ridiculous. How should it be hotter in, Oregon than it is in Vegas? It's going to be like 113 tomorrow. 113. David Williams is in New Mexico. He's going to be joining me tomorrow night, and I bet it'll be hotter here than it is where he's at. So we shall see. Let's see. I have to go tell Shelly to get the White Claw flowing. Yep. And the family show is now officially over. Okay. So let me go through the usual stuff that I have to do, because I feel so deflated after Walter and Louise left. It's kind of like, now it's just me. But the show must go on, even if it is just me. That's a good question, and I haven't been invited, so therefore I am not going. I don't go to shows anymore unless they're like, well, that's not even a for sure. I was gonna say unless someone pays my way, but that's not entirely true. I mean, I'll go to San Diego, obviously, if and when it ever starts up again. And New York, a little bit more iffy until they get the crime back under control there. Whenever, I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. But I'm not as sold on the New York show. The New York show is really expensive to attend. And plus I have to fly all the way across country, and I hate doing that now. I mean, I hate to sound like I'm getting old and crotchety, but I guess I'm getting old and crotchety. It's like being on a plane for like 6 hours or whatever it is. It's like 4.5, 5, whatever it is to get to New York. There's always a layover someplace, so that flight time gets elongated. Because I'm going to Kansas City in July for a one-day show, and to me, that's kind of like Kansas City. That's like 2.5 hour flight, maybe 3 hours max. I'm kind of like, oh, that's so far. So if I can't even get to Kansas City without whining, how in the heck can I get to Orlando? But if they did call me and said, Aaron, you want to come out to MegaCon? I would say, heck yeah, I'll go. I am going to try and do Heroes. Well, I say try because my plan is to do Heroes Con next year when it comes up again, because I love that show, but I haven't been there in ages. And I know I can work a deal where at least I can get, some stuff taken care of, so the expense isn't quite so great. That's the roll of the dice, right? You go to a show as a creator, and you, like San Diego, if it cost you, to get a booth. I share a booth with Terry Dodson every year. You got your flight out there. You got your hotel, which is incredibly expensive now. Your food, because you're there for 5 or 6 days, right? Almost an entire week when you're at San Diego. And the same with New York. You got all these expenses, and now you have to make that much money just to break even, just to pay for your trip, right? And so then it really doesn't become profitable till after that point. And then you're like, well, how much money can I, if it's going to cost me $3,000 to do this show or whatever, how much money do I actually have to make this worthwhile, or should I just stay at home and worked? I mean, you get to a point where the bigger shows, that's kind of the reality of what you're dealing with. So if you have a show, and they're usually the smaller shows that people will bring you out, which doesn't make any sense, right? Because you think the smaller attended shows, they have less revenue coming in, so they have less money to spend on guests, and yet they're the ones that will pay to bring you out to have you appear. And so you're basically, all you're out is your time, and then whatever money you make at the show, that's profit, right? But the bigger shows, they have so many people that want to go, and they know that they're not going to just, pay for everybody to come out. You're going to get a couple people get, lucky enough every year to be like the special guests, and they get brought out. But yeah, so East Coast shows are not in my future, unless something comes up where someone says, hey, we want to bring you out, then of course I would be more than happy to do it. I am going to be in Tennessee for Free Comic Book Day, which is mid-August sometime this year, I guess. And so I'll be there for that. And that's about as far east as I'm getting this year. I will be doing the Rose City Con in Portland. Of course, I just have to drive there. And I'll probably be doing Seattle in December, although Seattle in December is not the most appealing thing, especially if it starts snowing or something and it's really nasty. It's kind of like, I don't want to drive up there for that. So we'll see. It's a fluid situation, as they say. Look at this. Hyper Potato is, well, there you go. If I'm going to get free pizza, I'm going to Heroes Con. Well, actually, I was going to go to Heroes Con without the free pizza, but now I'm going to take advantage of the free pizza because you offered. I like this. My son is here, or was here. Great interview to watch. Thanks, Josh, for tuning in. He won't watch it when it's just me, but he'll watch it when it's Walt and Louise because he knows them so well. And I alluded to a story. We were at MegaCon back when I was at CrossGen, and I had known Walter and Louise because Shelley and I had met them at a con in Seattle, of all places, back in like the early 90s, right? And so they were, you know, Weezy was still working on Superman, I think, probably at that point. Well, no, she wasn't. She was probably still at Marvel. I can't remember. But anyway, we went out to dinner with them and became immediate friends. And it's back to just me. So come in and save me as soon as you can.
Oh, sorry. Got hit with a good old migraine there for a while.
Shelley's back. The show has started. I can slap myself. So anyway, so we knew them, and we had stayed at their house. I had stayed there once, and then Shelley came with me another time. We stayed at Walt and Louise's house, and so they were at MegaCon, and we were at CrossGen, and so Josh was about what 12, 11 years old. When Walter kind of had him that day, and sort of
I think he was younger than that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, actually, yeah, because he would have been.
Were we in Florida?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
But I think we were.
Josh was. Yeah, I mean, we moved back. He was like 12.
Yeah, so he was probably like 10, maybe 10, 11. And
okay.
So anyway, and Walter was so gracious. He took so much time with Josh and talked to him about things. And Josh was, you know, he was into collecting comics at that time and HeroClix and everything. And I remember we were in the bus going back to the hotel or something like that. And Josh was sitting there, and he was sitting with Walter, and he asked Walter, he said, you know, like any little kid would do, like, who would win in a fight, Superman or Thor? And Walter thought for a minute, and he goes, it all depends on who's writing the story. And man, was there never truer words than that spoken. So these debates about who's stronger are kind of ridiculous because I can make Batman beat the Hulk if I'm writing a story and I want him to win this. So anyway, but so Josh has known Walter and Weezy for quite a long time, 15, 16, 17 years going on now. And so anyway, yeah, they're just terrific people. And now that I'm through gushing about them,
Gush.
Humphrey wants to know about the snacks. And actually, I still have the snacks from yesterday. They're still here. And I haven't had any breakfast or any lunch. So,
Bill, you need somebody who'd make you food.
who would that be?
Know anybody like that?
I don't know.
Oh, there goes that. Good Lord. I just had some yogurt covered pretzels.
Well, I didn't tell Mom and Weezy to bring snacks. But as you can tell, when I interview people, at least people that I have some respect for, I kind of get serious and, you know, ask them the real interesting stuff.
I see Josh.
Yeah. Sure.
Nice. So it went well.
I think it did. I mean, I know some people probably had some questions and we just never got to them because I had a bunch of my own questions.
Right.
And there's nothing better than to ask a question to Walter and just sit back and let him spin a yarn for you.
Oh, he's a spin master.
No, yeah, he's got plenty to tell, and his memory is just, God, the details are just amazing. And so that was a lot of fun. But so let me
see. Sorry, I missed.
Well, Shelley's taking over the show. She's going back and scrolling.
I just wanted to. Gosh, I just like, bam, migraine. You guys are so funny.
I'm like,
yeah, it's only $99.
is that all?
Right here. Yeah, today, right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to get my own show, like 60 Minutes. So again, let me just say now that Shelley's here, welcome everyone once again to Aaron. As we're back for day 2. So
it just only feels like day 5.
I know.
Oh,
It's like a real con, right? It feels like day 5. So let me show you my goods and wares. Shall I?
goods and wares.
Well,
wares are the wares.
Exactly. So I'm going to switch cameras here so I can show you my goods and wares. For those of you who are just joining us or weren't here yesterday. And I'll tell you this, if you weren't here yesterday, like and subscribe to my channel, please. That allows me to get more groovy guests.
And, oh my gosh,
like
go back and watch it because it was
watch yesterday. If you haven't watched yesterday's show, you gotta watch it. It's long.
My gosh,
it's in 2 parts.
So funny.
But we laughed quite a bit.
Yeah.
But please take a moment now. That's Frankenstein threatening you to like and subscribe because it's very important. We want to get. We picked up several yesterday. We want to pick up some more. We want to get to that magical 1,000. Oh, we don't want to see that. We want to see this. What? Okay, guide me through, Shelley. What am I?
Guide you through. Oh, sorry.
That's probably good. No, I'm good. Okay.
Okay, you good.
So, what do I have? This is my table back here. I'm giving you close to the table. I have prints for sale. They're all
prints for sale.
That's right. They're all limited edition. They're all signed, and only a couple of them aren't numbered, but they're all signed, and they're $15 a piece, $5 shipping. However, I can fit 3 prints into a tube, so really you can get 3 prints and still get $5 shipping.
Gosh, I love stuff like that.
Don't you? I mean, you're being the Amazon shopper that you are. There's all the pertinent information that you might need scrolling on the bottom there. Because you may be asking yourself, Aaron, how do I pay you? How do I send you money so you can give me product? Well, you go to PayPal and you send it to aaron@aaronlopresti.com. And you know what, Shelley?
What?
You tell me why you're sending me money, because it doesn't mean any good if I don't know why you sent me money. And you make sure your address is on there so I know where to send it when I package it up and send it out to you. And as always, handling is free.
Oh, yeah. We handle everything for free.
That's right.
Never charge to handle.
There's Warrior Nouveau. There's Captain's Quarry, which is basically Captain America and a rogues gallery of villains. We have the classic and always popular Girl Power with Wonder Woman and Superman. We go over here to the wonderful copyright infringement Jaws movie poster that I did. That's actually a print, but I do have actually 2 26 by 34 copies. They're closer. That's not still movie poster size, but it's a heck of a lot closer. They're available for $40 a piece if somebody wanted to grab one of those, or you get the 11 by 17 version right there for $15. Next to that is the Little Mermaid all grown up that we like to call the Coral Princess for copyright reasons. Star Wars Princesses. That's a hard word.
Princesses.
We Can Do It with Rosie the Riveteer, one of my all-time favorite and popular prints. And then, of course, the always forgotten Lana Turner hiding behind my 20 years sketchbooks. That's Lana Turner as Supergirl, 1946. Well, Shelley's going to do a quick move here. There it is. San Diego, 1946. And that's Supergirl because you can tell her towel is making an S shape behind her.
Oh, clever.
Oh, that's very clever. But yeah, so those are the prints I have available. And there's a Spider-Man one over there someplace, isn't there?
You know what? It's amazing, I hear.
You know, it is. And there it is. I got a few of those left, which is called simply Amazing. And that was inked by John Livesey. And that was for an auction piece we did years ago for the San Jose Con that was called Big Wow. And now I have these. These are called sketchbooks. These are hardcover. These are full color, 64 pages, limited edition, signed and numbered. They're $25, but there's more. You can get one of these with a headshot inside, a head sketch on the inside of the book for an extra $20. So then it becomes a $45 purchase, $5 shipping. How do you get one? Well, you can just, in messages right now, you can just post in there and say, Aaron, I want a sketchbook with Shelley inside. No.
Oh,
I don't do likenesses.
That would be
well, I do
burnable.
likenesses, but I'm not doing them in the sketchbooks because it takes too much time and effort and work. So But if you have like a favorite character, a fictional character, superhero, comic book character, whatever that you want me to put in there, I'll do it. You just say it in the messages, send me the money, say it in the messages. I will do it live right here on AaronCon 2021. Also, I've got a few of these comics. This is the variant cover I did for Project Patreon, which is an Aftershock book. It's Steve Orlando's book. What did I say?
Patreon. You said
Oh, did I say
Patreon's
Patreon?
Yeah.
Project Patreon. I apologize for my lack of intelligence. It runs in the family. And
Oh, what family?
well,
Oh, not mine. Oh, my bad.
I've also got these James Bond variants. These are $10 a piece. They come signed as well. The Project Patron is $5. And I'll sign that. Also, I would recommend getting, if you're going to get some comics, get something else or get more than one comic because the shipping is going to be like $5. So you don't want to pay $5 on a comic and pay $5 for shipping when you could spend $40 on something and pay $5 shipping. That's my math anyway. I also have these available. This is the Justice League Galaxy of Terrors trade paperback for $10. That comes signed. This has my, how many issues was it? I want to say one of them was double issues. So I want to say it was 6 issues, but it was probably, might have been 5. Anyway, but it has my whole last Justice League story arc in there where they were kind of out in outer space on a different planet and all sorts of hi-jinks. Yeah, we only have 2 of those left. That are available. So that's kind of the that's what I've got on the table. I've got, oh, let me do this as well. I do have art, and I'm not going to go through all this stuff, but Wonder Woman Conan, I have a ton of really good pages left from this series. This book is full of them. And these are all listed on my comic art gallery. If you look down, if you're watching on YouTube, you look down, there's a link there for the comic art gallery. You can go and check these out, and they'll have nice scans and the prices on them, and you can contact me if you're interested in any of those. I've got some groovy Wonder Woman stuff in here when she was a kid, so I don't know how groovy it is, but trying to work the camera and flip the book at the same time ain't working too well. I've got some really cool Swamp Thing pages left too that may be of interest to you horror fans out there. And if you're watching this video later or even right now, you want to contact me about this, feel free to do so. Email is aaron@aaronlopresti.com, which is scrolling along the bottom right now. Ooh. Look at this. I've got a bunch of Infinite Crisis Dark Multiverse pages. There's a really good Batman page right there. There's Wonder Woman, there's Blue Beetle, there's Booster Gold pages, there's Superboy pages in here. Just a lot of really cool, groovy stuff, all available. I don't think I have scans up of that stuff anywhere yet. So if you are interested in some of that Dark Multiverse stuff, give me a shout out through the messages or email, and I can get you, we can talk about what's available, lists, and all that kind of stuff. I've got some covers. Most of these covers are listed on my website as well under the original art section, but some Herculoid stuff. I still have this one Wonder Woman Conan cover left, which is pretty cool. This was to the very first issue. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was the second issue. It was the first cover I did. Got a bunch of Damage covers. Probably not the most popular character, but some really cool art nonetheless. I mean, there he is fighting Deadman and Superman, and the Justice League's all knocked out in the background, and there he is dining on Fing Fang Foom. Legends of Tomorrow with Firestorm. Oops. Anyway, got a few Amethyst covers left. The covers should be all listed on my website. But again, if there's something that you're looking for specifically and you don't see it, email me about it. But again, I got a buttload of Justice League pages that have great Superman pages, great Wonder Woman pages, still available. Let me show you just a couple of those. And the Justice League stuff is all listed on the Comic Art Fans gallery page. But Look at that. You've got the Flash,
Nice.
Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman from behind. But anyway, that's a really cool page. That's the opening shot. There's a really good Batman and Wonder Woman page. You know, so if you don't want to pay $1,500 for a David Finch Batman page, you can pay, you know, $350 and get one from me, and save yourself some money and get some great art. So I have a ton of that stuff, and not to believe that's the same story arc that's in here. So, all right,
There you have it.
let's
go to some comments, man.
let's switch cameras first.
Done?
Yep. 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 Yep.
Yep.
Here we are.
Yep. 27 comments. Ah!
It happens so fast.
Woo!
Watch your toes.
Wouldn't a movie character be a likeness?
Yes, it would be.
Yes.
If you wanted to look like the actor, that would be a likeness.
Scott, good question.
It's really warm up here.
Oh my gosh. It's like the Sonicon. It's only, it's going to be 100. I think they
I'm getting to
upped
that.
our.
I got to get to
I
that.
know it's a good question. Yeah.
Let me jump up. Jump
Wait.
up.
No jumping.
Okay.
We're too old for jumping. It's supposed to be 115 tomorrow. 113 on Monday.
I picked a great day to do a con upstairs, didn't I?
Ooh, it's the Sonicon.
This is Shelley's feelings about the heat.
I don't like it.
But we do this regardless of the circumstances because
There's no business like show business, like no business I know.
yeah. So there you go. There is no business like show business. What do they say in Galaxy Quest? The show must go on. So here we are.
Really?
Okay. So let's take a look at this. And it's still us. But
Somebody dancing.
now, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take the banner off so you can see the whole thing. Okay. This is what I'm offering as a limited edition print that is available only during ErinCon. Okay, so that means, what does that mean, Shelley? I'll tell you what it means. I know you want to know.
It this weekend.
You can't get it.
SOL.
That's right. You cannot get it. You can probably kill that light.
Oh. Turn it off. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got so many lights on in here. That's probably adding to the
Oh
boiling
my
factor.
gosh, it's 1,000,000 degrees.
We could actually take like seafood and just hold it in the air and it would cook. We don't even need the boiling water. But anyway,
It's crazy.
so yes, we do have an air conditioned home, but we're upstairs and it just, anyway. Okay, so back to this. I did a commission, a double page spread commission for Jason Mazar over in Australia, or I should say down under in Australia. And he was kind enough to say, hey, you know what? Go ahead and make a print of that. I said, all right, Jason, I will. Because a lot of people were asking about it when I posted it on social media. So I have turned it into a limited edition print. It's 14 1/4 by 18 1/2, or 14 1/2 by 18 1/4, something like that. And so it's almost full size double page spread. It's signed and it's limited edition. You determine the size of the edition. How many ever orders I get for this weekend, that's yesterday, today, and tomorrow at midnight is the cutoff. So if there's 20 orders for it, the print run will be 20, and that is it. So this is, regardless, this is going to be an ultra rare print. It's $25 plus $5 shipping. So basically $30 gets this delivered to your door, signed and numbered. I take it to the printer on Monday, get it back later in the week, and then I will ship them out. So again, don't think about it because you don't have time to think about it. If you want it, get it now. How do you get it? How do you get it? I'll tell you how you get it.
You get it.
You simply go to PayPal, which is Aaron@AaronLopresti.com, and send me $30 and say, I want the Justice League print, and make sure your address is attached. And that's all you have to do. And then you are secured and you have your spot. You don't have to send me an email and go, hey, Aaron, I want one of those things. Just send it to me on PayPal. I have a record that you sent me the payment. Make sure you tell me what it's for, because that's key. And then your address so I know where to send it. And it's that simple. So you've only got the rest of today and tomorrow to order this, and then it becomes completely unavailable forever. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Did I pitch it hard enough, do you think? Okay. Let's see. Well, let me see. I just wanted to say I'm 37 years old, and I can't thank Walt and Louise enough for everything they did. I grew up reading their work, and I loved every bit of it. You know what? So I assume you were here for the interview. Ruth Van Carlisle. Thank you for watching, and I will continue to pass on sentiments as I get them. And they do have Facebook pages that you can like just message and say, hey, loved your interview, loved you guys so much, thank you for everything you do. And they do check them and read them. So the stuff is greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated.
So I wanted to see Jaws again.
There it is.
Yep. There's good lighting, perhaps.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate right there.
Yeah.
It's a really nice piece. I think the likeness has turned out very well. I had to come up with a different way to show the shark, and I think it worked out pretty well. I really do like the design of this poster. And like I said, there is a 24 by 36. 2 of them still left available for they're $40 a piece, and they do come signed. And this, of course, the 11 by 17 is $15. So if you were to say, man, I really want that Jaws print, make sure you specify, if you send me money for it, specify which one you want. Well, of course, I'd be able to tell by how much money you sent me. Shipping, of course, is $5.
Okay. No, the AC units haven't arrived yet. Let me check Amazon. Where are they?
Oh, yeah. Won't get a deposit in my account until Monday. Can I wait till Monday to order and send PayPal? What are we talking about, Tom? You talking about the print? If you're talking about the print, we will mark you down for 1. If it's anything else, you can, whenever.
Did you get some presents?
I already shared.
Oh, I know. I'm so nice.
But since she's here, she got me some new markers.
Yeah, but even better, because I've been complaining for the last how many weeks? Markers. But my favorite part.
Go ahead.
Well, did you show those?
Oh, these?
Because I complained so much that his desktop is unorganized and a mess.
It is messy.
You could just pick it up.
Well,
you have
it's easier to do this. It's easier just to click.
That would be true. Click, click, click.
She got me these thingies.
Thingies?
These are like little rack thingies that you put the pens in, so they can be very organized. So, yeah, that showed up today, and I was at first shockk and alarmed that they weren't shoes, and for her, but then
those are coming today.
And but then there's stuff for me, and I was like, wow, I was moved.
No, it was middle of the night, moment of weakness.
Let's see. Oh no, yeah, I came in late, but I can't thank you enough for either having them on. It's been my favorite love show.
Live show.
Love show. I prefer love show.
Yeah.
I prefer love show. That's a little bit more intimate. Well, great. Hey, thank you. And the great thing about these interviews and the posts is, although it's kind of cool to be there live, you can also go back and watch it on my YouTube channel or Facebook and see the whole thing again in its entirety. Boy, I had them for an hour and a half, and I felt like I barely scratched the surface of things I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh my gosh, it could be like a series. Coffee with Walt and Weezy.
Yeah, that's right. Every Monday morning, coffee with Walt and Weezy.
Let's see. Keep going up. GLA print did that.
I don't know what cover you're talking about, but gosh darn it, if it looks sick, then thank you so much.
Like it a lot.
Yes, really appreciate that. Now, you know what, Shelley? Let's move things along. Because we're not getting any younger.
That's for sure.
What is Wonder Woman's print sitting on the rock called? That is called Warrior in Repose. Warrior in Repose.
You could just say, describe whichever one.
Yeah, you could just say Wonder Woman sitting on the rock. That works too.
Shipping International, yes.
Okay, Scott. No, you don't get the $5 shipping. I'm really, really sorry.
Right.
But you'd have to tell me specifically what you wanted, and then I would have to get you some shipping invoice out to you with proper whatever. So if
$1 million.
If you're international and you want something, you can contact me through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you're on, or you can email me at aaron@aaronlopresti.com and say, this is what I want, Aaron. How much is the shipping? And then I can put a package together and figure out how much it actually weighs and give you accurate shipping costs. So yes, I do ship internationally.
Oof. Crazy. All right, I'm going back through. I just want to make sure we didn't miss some. Oh, this is going to be an interesting weekend. See how many people like rocking full beards when it's a million degrees out.
No Fantastic Four prints. Sorry. No. Aaron, do you want a picture of us with your book and the art inside?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Picture of us.
Get the book with your and then.
Oh,
yeah.
Like a testimonial kind of thing.
I can't draw pictures to show them, so I have to
That'd be
act
fun.
It out.
Yeah, you do that. Take a picture, send it to me on Facebook or whatever.
That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome. Yes.
How much is a print?
I think I answered that, but they're $15 a piece. Super Jerry 27. They're $15 a piece, $5 shipping, but I can get 3 of them in a tube. So if you want up to 3, it's still $5 shipping. Once you go past 3, it becomes another $5.
Nice. I think Aaron's gonna show his goods. Oops, there.
Well, nothing is beyond us.
Oh yeah.
Snack time.
Everybody, drink your water this weekend.
I'm eating the triple berry Newtons.
Yeah, I'm on my almost done with my second one of these so far today.
I didn't want to drink too much when I was talking to Walter and Louise because I don't want to be rude.
Okay. What breed of dog do we have? He's so cute. He's a miniature schnauzer.
Is he passed out someplace?
Yeah, he's snoozing big time this weekend. He's so warm. He's
usually
on top of the stairs.
But we can't get him in for a month.
Let's see. Nice, good one, Matt.
I can't even afford the kids I got.
Oh, that's so funny. They're very nice. So make sure we didn't miss anything. I think that's good.
That's actually true.
Where are the snacks? In my belly. Awesome. Super Jerry. Yeah, schnauzers are awesome.
Jerry's got the full poster. All right. We'll get that out to you, man.
All the color pinup art. Sell.
We're getting there. No, there's still a couple pieces left, but we're getting there.
But didn't one come in late, though, last night?
Okay. I'll jump ahead and do that since I have someone specifically asking about it right now.
Which one came in late?
Daredevil. It's gone.
But I don't have it marked down.
Yeah, that was the French guy.
All right, the French. Le français.
Okay, so here's what I've got left. These are mixed with the ones that have sold, so I'll tell you which one is left. And Shelley's going to correct me on make sure I don't say something stupid, right? Okay, these are 9x12.
That's a big roll.
Big Bart is gone. But Mary Marvel and Ms. Marvel are still available. Is that not correct?
That is correct, sir.
Those are 9x12. Mary's 225 because she has lightning in hers. And Ms. Marvel is 200. And all you have to do is type in the comment section, sold Mary Marvel or sold Ms. Marvel, and you get it. First one that does that gets it.
And shipping
is on these is $10, 9x12s, correct? Okay, so I have those. Now Daredevil is gone, but Man Thing is still here. The giant-sized Man Thing is still here.
Believe it or not.
For $250, and this is 11x14, so it's bigger and badder, and there's a lot of detail in it. That's actually a really nice buy for $250. Problem is, I realize there's not a ton of Man-Thing fans out there, but except me. But that's a really nice piece for a good price. Daredevil's gone, so don't say you want Daredevil. Daredevil's sold. Man-Thing is available.
Back to 9x12 Frankenstein.
9x12 Frankenstein. That's Bernie Wrightson's version of Frankenstein. My little tribute to him. That's $200. That's 9x12. Doom is gone. Don't try and buy Doom. Doom is sold.
You'll be doomed.
That's right. But Frankenstein is still available. And then an 11x14, Iron Man is still available. The Moon Knight has been sold. But Iron Man is still available. And that, of course, is classic 1968 Iron Man, which is the best Iron Man.
The bestest.
So that's what actually I think I still have some cover roughs left as well, but let's worry about these right now.
Yeah.
And we're back. So that's that. Let's see if anything popped up in the comments. Man-Thing, Batter, and Uncut. You got it, brother. Bigger, Batter, and Uncut. It's true. I really like Aaron's Skeletons, which Garbage Man basically is a corpse. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so when you go to PayPal, you'll see it as Cold Crock Press, and that's him.
No, I still have Molten Menace. I think is the only Kit Carter print I have left, and I do have some of the story prints left. Shelley, would you?
That one?
Yes.
This one's gone?
This is the very first color newspaper style strip. And if you get this, you get access to the other color strips. Although the website is broken, so I have to actually send you JPEGs of the other color strips so you can actually read them. But that's how it works. So that's basically just a bonus for this. But I have this left, which is the story print. And then I have Kit Carter versus the Molten Menace left. Oop, there we go.
Looks like zombies.
There's actually the Molten Menace is on this one too.
Oh my gosh, it's a twofer.
It's a molten menace. Wow.
3 times fast.
Tons of tongue twisters going on. That's what I've got available for Kit Carter at present.
These just all bats. No.
Cold Crocodile Press, Jerry, that is correct.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay. I love all these pieces. I'm holding out for Ms. Tree or Dart or Cloak and Dagger or Airboy and Valkyrie.
Holding out then. Oh.
Yeah, you may be holding out for a while.
Space Hunt?
Cloak and Dagger is not an impossibility. Neither is Airboy or Valkyrie. But not on. Yeah, well, hand me those. Would you? Thank you. I also have this. Now, this is interesting because this is still on my website, I think. This is called Space Hunt, and this is actually the first. This is like a Kit Carter prototype print that I did. So if you wanted to be a Kit Carter completist, I do have some of these left as well. That's called Space Hunt. Thank you, Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Jerry. I think it will look great. I have one hanging up in my movie room. So I only made I think 6 of the full-size 24x36 Jaws prints. I did one for my son and a friend of his, and then I think I've sold a couple. I have one myself, and then I have 2 left. So it's sold for super ultra limited. Okay, so I've got a book to draw in first, and that's what we're going to do for. Oh, wait a minute. We got to do this. I keep forgetting this. Yeah. What am I working on? Well, that's a good question. Let's take a look. This is the cover to Shield #1, which is a variant cover. This comes out from Archie Comics this month. It was originally a Rob Liefeld project, but he bolted for some sort of disagreement. And so there's another writer stepped in to finish it up. But I believe most of it is Liefeld's pencils, and I didn't do any of the interiors. I just did the cover. This is maybe, Shelley, this may be the best cover I've ever done. It's simple, it's effective, but it's certainly one of my favorites. I penciled, inked it, and colored it. So go out and support your local Aaron and buy this comic when it comes out. I also have this, this is kind of an enigma, wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in a conundrum.
Just Mr. Vocab.
I know.
Remember, I have a math degree. Vocab is just
you could actually say
my pay grade.
You could actually say I'm folded, really, if you wanted to.
Something.
This is for a Swedish publisher. This is a sci-fi anthology book. I wrote and penciled and inked the story on the inside. It's a 8-page dystopian future. Introduces this guy as kind of a new hero type. But I have no idea what the name of the book is, and I don't know when it's coming out. So this is pretty helpful.
Other than that, it's got all the info you need.
But as soon as I get that information, I, of course, right here on Aaron Live, will I pass that information on to you. But just, kind of put it on your radar there. And, okay, so then the two big announcements that I've made last night and will now continue to make today. Number one, this is finally coming out. Yes, what is this? This is the trade paperback, the collection of all the... It's much cooler with that light off. Isn't it? I can tell. It's much cooler. I can't tell. Anyway, and plus I have that light shining there instead of on me. But this is the trade paperback of all the Garbage Man stories I did for DC. The catch is, the interesting thing about this is, in the DC stories I originally did, Batman guest starred in it. He wasn't a major player, but he was intricate into the outcome of the story. So once I got the rights back to Garbage Man from DC, before I could publish them, I had to get rid of Batman. So what I did was I got rid of him. I did new pages or redrew panels in existing pages that he appeared in and replaced them with an all-new super team.
You did?
I did.
In the Loprestiverse?
Yes. This is actually technically the launch of the Loprestiverse right here. So you have Garbage Man, and you have this new team that appears in there. And so it's not just a reprint collection. It is a collection with new material in it and a first appearance. So
that's awesome.
You have to, it's a must get. And so you can order this from your comic shops, or you can order it even off of Amazon. It's I believe it's 136-page trade paperback. A lot of people have been waiting, especially me, for years for this to happen. And I was finally, I came to a pretty easy agreement with Dark Horse. They were looking for some stuff, and I happened to have some stuff, and it all worked out.
You got stuff.
So there it is. Now the super, super, super big announcement. This is my new creator-owned. It'll be a crowd-funded project called Wraith of God. It is a superhero Western monster book. In this particular storyline, he is hunting down a band of werewolves, but it's not a werewolf book in the sense that, that's not they're just the villains. The story is our main character, the Wraith here. Now, like I said, he is a Batman character. He's a master of disguise. He's advanced in his chemical knowledge and use of tricks and illusion and things like that. And he also has a sidekick, an Alfred, who is named Ruth. She is a young former Salvation Army worker that he's, how shall we say, enticed to join him in his quest to rid the land of monsters and evil. So I don't want to tell you a whole lot because it's very twisty and there's a lot of interesting character dynamics in it that I don't really want to give away. But it will be a 72-page graphic novel. So it was originally going to be 3-issue miniseries, but it's come together as a graphic novel. I will have, at least as of right now, Terry Dodson's on board for doing a alternate cover for me. And then I'm doing actually another 70s, and you'll have to kind of check it out when it comes out. Oh, wait a minute, where's that other hand? There it is, 70s version of a cover for this book. So they'll have 3 covers that you can choose from, or you can get all 3, of course. We're going to have T-shirts that accompany this.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some prints accompanying this. There will be a sticker set accompanying this. So what's going to happen is I'm going to launch what they call a pre-launch page that previews it. We have to get a video made first, which I'm going to get on next week. So it'll be soon. This pre-launch page will go up where you can go and sign up for information about the book and leave your email address, and that way I have a roster of people that are interested, and then I can shoot out a mass email when the thing goes live, and you can run through your computer and order one and then make it happen. Because as those of you who know crowdfunding realize that it's not just me doing it, it's you guys enabling me to do it. So you're part of the process, and a very important part of the process, because it can't be done without you. So so all of us that are doing this and hopefully doing it right are doing it with you guys in mind. And what can we do to make it worth your while to be involved in the project and get on the ground level of something big, which would be the first book I published myself that is part of the Low Prestiverse. Or as you can see the little logo up there, Empire Comics, which will be the brand that I'll be releasing my stuff under, being published by, of course, my publishing nomiker, Cold Crocodile Press. So there you go. That's a pretty long-winded sales pitch, but keep your eyes open for that. And obviously, I won't let you forget about it because I'll be posting it everywhere continually.
Back to comments.
Now back to comments. As Shelley takes over the show while I take a drink.
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Mary Marvel's gone.
Oh, goodbye.
I think we better
Oh, yeah.
make sure no one came in. Nope, no one did.
Okay, how much are the Kit Carter prints? They're all 15?
They're $15, $5 shipping.
Um,
If they're 3, if you get, like I said, less than 3, or 3 or less, $5 shipping. If you go over 3, there's another $5 because I have to send out 2 tubes.
So, yeah, for the low Azron comic.
Azron comic. When you're begging for a deal, how about spelling my name right?
Oh, gosh, that's my favorite thing all day. Let's see.
I'm not sure how to take this. I think, I don't know. Rodney may be being sincere, but something tells me he's asking for it.
Oh, that is funny. Oh.
It's like I went to sleep, came back, and was like I didn't miss anything.
Oh, gosh.
That
is so funny.
Indiegogo. It's actually going to be on both, but it's going to start on Indiegogo. Then I'm going to do Kickstarter after the Indiegogo campaign because I realize there are people that will. I don't understand it, but I know it's a thing. There's Kickstarter people and there's Indiegogo people, and I like Indiegogo because they have you can leave the store open after the campaign closes and still take orders. Kickstarter doesn't have that feature. And there seems to be a really sort of growing indie comic community on Indiegogo as well, where I have a lot of support there with other creators that are friends of mine. And so I'm going to launch there first, but I am going to go to Kickstarter and launch there afterwards to make sure I get as many out there as possible. And then Shelley and I will spend the rest of our lives packaging up comics and shipping them out to you guys. She's going to help. She's helping. She is helping.
Okay.
Just like the old days. Remember when
No.
we did those very first sketchbooks and we had to staple them?
Oh my gosh, we hand stapled them. Yeah. In fact, we still have the really long stapler because
we bought a
normal
stapler.
one wouldn't get to the middle.
Yes, we bought a large stapler, and I would like put the things together, and Shelley would staple them, or she'd put them together, and I'd staple them because this was like early
We
90s.
didn't want to pay to have the staples put in.
Well, we couldn't.
And then,
We couldn't afford to get them printed, so I ran off Xeroxes. They were like these
Oh
high grade
my gosh,
Xeroxes
that's
pages, right?
That's
And
right.
then
we
we
had to
stapled
collate them and
right, because there wasn't digital printing then.
right.
And so
right.
it was either I had to go offset printing, which would have cost me a fortune, and we didn't know how many we were going to sell because we ended up like doing like 20 or 30 of them. You know, it wasn't a lot. And so I did like Xeroxes of them. And we, in
Oh my
fact,
gosh, that's funny. I forgot about that.
entertain the masses, Shelley. I'm going to go grab a copy.
He does
really
this
quick.
to me all the time. Entertain him.
Right
Oh,
over here. I'm going to be right over
my
here.
tap shoes are downstairs. Sorry.
I'm going to grab one. I'm just going to be right over here.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that Walt and Louise dance. We haven't seen him in so long. That was really nice. Sorry, I had to bail for a little bit there.
Okay, here it is. All right.
Oh my gosh, that's right. And we thought we were so fancy with
This was the year. Okay, this was the year. The first year I got a booth at San Diego, which would have been 2000, maybe. Yeah, I think it was 2000. So,
well, we lived. Oh my gosh, this is when we still 2000. We lived in Hillsboro,
Oregon. There's my Cold Crocodile Press logo right on the back, and this was all.
And that's Joshua.
There's Josh posed for that, my son. And he's 28, almost 28 now.
On
so
Sunday.
give you an idea how old this is.
Not this Sunday, next Sunday.
So if you can find one of these, there's maybe 30 copies of these floating around, maybe, and probably more likely 20. So I found this kind of textured paper. You won't be able to see it, this is all.
I remember I felt so cool doing that printing.
This is all off Xerox copies, right? These are all Xerox pages. So I went and did a bunch of these, and we
yeah.
This is a painting.
It's a painting from
both
in our house.
both
of them, yeah.
Paintings.
In the house.
David and Goliath, Doc Savage.
Oh gosh, I love those Doc Savage books.
You should actually read those. This is part of the Lopresti verse. This is a series called Primal Zone. There's a dinosaur. I don't know if you can see the dinosaur there, and yeah, and they're on a little jet flyer thing. So it's technology meets the Stone Age.
When you Xena.
Yeah, I had a run where I was Xena. I was doing Xena comics for Topps, writing and illustrating them, and doing the covers, obviously. And this was my tribute to James Bama, Doc Savage Xena cover, and kind of with Doc Savage in the middle, looking back over his shoulder with some sort of menace behind him. That was kind of the inspiration for that Xena cover.
Oh my gosh!
It's just,
yeah.
That was an ad for our Chicks book. The girl's not the monsters there, and that is Good Girl, Joan of Arkansas in the middle, and then this girl right here was sort of my Vampirella ripoff, and I can't even remember her name. This story right here was from a book that was originally going to be called Creeps, but then Dan Mishkin and I forget the artist was off the top of my head, did a book called Creeps, and so before I got mine out, so I had to change the name. But the team that shows up in this story is actually the one in the Garbage Man story. So
you've been working on that a while.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, this is.
Answer.
So you can find one of these. It's.
So I think it's important that we recognize that Rodney got the ovation, the laugh, and the triple slap today.
Oh. Wow, that's got to be.
It's like the trifecta.
It's got to be a record.
Nice job.
We keep this up, we're going to start giving out awards and stuff.
I know. And tap shoes? Yes. Yes, Shelly has tap shoes. She's got some. Yeah, I don't wear them around 24/7. That would be annoying. Oh yeah. Hashtag Shelly shoe deal.
And all three, is that better?
I'm liking it. Not so much, Hen?
No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
He just shoves my hand.
Okay,
Get out of there, Shelly. Any commission slots still available?
No, not unless you're getting a sketchbook, which I'm going to do right now. Because we've done all the promo stuff. We've done all the selling, first round of selling anyway.
Yeah. But if you want to get on his commission list for later, you can email him at aaron@aaronlopresti.com.
That's correct.
And he'll get you some info.
I do take home commissions as well, but I'm not taking any for this weekend other than maybe headshots in the sketchbook is the only thing that I'll be able to get to that I don't. Yes, please. Where is it?
Oh. What else was I going to answer? Oh, where are you getting your prints made these days?
Who wants to know?
Right here. Think I just made that up?
I was
Not that
getting them.
smart.
I was getting them at Indigo Ink in Maryland, but the corners kept getting dinged on the shipping process back. So I found a place here that's just like 5 minutes from my house that does them for me. They're all produced digitally. They're not offset. So that's, you know, they have the paper. They do a nice job, and so I don't have to worry about them getting damaged in the printing process. So it's called impact printing. It's right around in our neighborhood. So there's that.
Okay, so I've got some payments from people. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're switching over to the leg cam, the foot cam.
Oh, no. And she's out.
She's dove out of the camera range.
Oh.
Okay. So this dude from France,
Oh. Oui.
he wants a joker.
Il veut un joker.
Joker, and a triple.
Awesome.
And you know what? After I think, I think we'll take a break at the 3-hour mark, which would be about 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And then we'll take about an hour break so it can get even hotter up here.
Awesome.
And then we'll come back and go until we drop. I think that's going to be the plan.
Which will be about 4:30.
Not for
I'm going to
me.
get some water. Can I get anything?
I still have water,
Okay.
so I'm good. Although I need to start drinking it. Okay. Alrighty, here we go. This blank page will magically become the Joker here in a minute. I actually really do enjoy doing these in the sketchbook because they're just so kind of loose and free that, you know, no pressure really. And I always do the Joker with sort of that kind of Boland hairstyle that he used in The Killing Joke. Because I have to admit, I wasn't really much of a Joker fan until that comic. And although it was a terrific story by Alan Moore, it was the artwork by Boland that was just like, it just sort of captivated me. And I'm always that way with characters. I don't necessarily, well, let me turn this off too, that'll help. That helped a lot. Oh, there we go. I don't necessarily, I'm not the normal comic book reader. If I don't love the artwork, I don't care how good the story is, it's really hard for me to get into it. And it was just, I mean, because Boland drew the Joker so well that it really changed my whole perspective on the character. Because I respond to stuff visually. But I kind of like that Joker look with it. I don't know if you'd call it really 40s style hair, but kind of, longer on top and short on the sides like that. So that was it just changed my, like I said, the whole visual perspective of this character changed when I read The Killing Joke. Because the old version of it, even and the biggest Neil Adams fan as I am, I just didn't like that version, that was, Neil Adams drew him. I mean, everybody sort of drew him the same way, and it kind of just was too reminiscent of a television show or something for me. But he became really sort of scary and maniacal when Boland drew him. And obviously the story made him, pretty horrific as well, but just that version, gosh, it's just... Oh my gosh, Shelly just brought me an ice pack and put it behind me.
I know. Hashtag wife of the year.
Yep, that's fabulous. I'm gonna write that down. That's the nicest thing you've done for me this month yet. So no, I'm kidding. It's all comedy, folks. It's all comedy. And not necessarily good comedy, but it is comedy. Okay, there we go. These are pretty, I mean, let's face it, these are pretty elaborate sketches for 20 bucks. So it's a really good deal. So if you don't have one of these, and I know a lot of people are either taking advantage of my good nature with the, with the good deal and getting multiple sketchbooks just so they can get, headshots in them. But that's okay. I did this, or I am doing this to promote the book, to get the book out there. And I am thankful and grateful for anybody who gets one of these. So, but like I said, it's a pretty sweet deal. $20 head sketch like this in a book. And I tend to, when I do them live stream like this, which I almost do all of my sketchbooks, I do them on live streams. I tend to do a little extra work on them because, well, because it's video content for you guys. And so that then a good deal becomes even better. How about that? How's that for a sales pitch? Now, wait a minute, did you get the sequential artists down on the list for Mary Marble?
Whoa, my bad. Gosh, those big feet of mine. Every time.
So that was cool.
I should be much taller.
There you go.
I did. Oh, at least a big off. We're married. Oh, Husker's going, Daddy, what are you doing? There he is.
Oh, now he's taking off. As soon as you put the camera on him, he like bolts.
There he is. Oh. Not anymore. What is it, Boo? What? Oh, here we go.
He may need to go out. I don't know.
Okay.
Terrifying, isn't it? Do you know how he got those scars? Quoting a line, aren't you? From one of the movies. I assume that's a reference to one of the movies, right? And I guess it also depends on who wrote the story, right? Is how he ended up with his scarred smiley face or whatever it is. But see, in the comics, his face wasn't scarred. He just had a, it's like in the movie they like gave him the scars, but in the comics, he just had kind of an odd-shaped head and was pretty aggressively smiling. And possibly the vat of chemicals he fell into helped. That's what I thought. That's what I thought it was. Oh, Johnny, thanks for joining us. What's right now? Shelley's nerves again. Oh, see? He comes in right in the gates and he's swinging. I love it, though. I love it. Keep the show lively. I love drawing the Joker. Like I said, I hated the character until Bolin drew him, and now it's like, if anybody gives me an option, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll draw the Joker. I'll draw the Joker, and I always draw sort of Bolin version of the Joker. Oops, turn it so you can actually see it, might help. There you go. Joker. Well, Johnny is saying that he just dropped in. Did you miss the interview with the Simonsons? Oh, dude, you're going to have to go back and watch this. That was good stuff. I must consult the Bat book. I think it's 283, but I can't remember exactly. Yep, 283. Boom. All right. My goal, it's a very modest goal, is to get to is to sell 300, get to 300. I'm at 283 right now. This was 283, and my goal is to get to 300 before the end of the year. I'll probably make that to the 2 appearances I'm doing in July and August. So maybe my goal should be 400 by the end of the year. Wouldn't that be something? All right, coolio. Oh, Johnny was listening to the interview. All right, good. Good. No, I'm sure, like I said, I joked with him and said it probably doubled my attendance having them on. But that ain't no lie. But hopefully we picked up a few new people that will happily join the fray every Sunday night at 5:30, which is when I do Aaron Live. This, of course, is a special weekend Aaron Con. Sorry. This is a special weekend of Aaron. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And what we're doing is we're splitting the show into two parts. The morning segment, or the earlier day segment, which we're in the middle of right now, we're near the end of right now. And that's where I brought in Walt and Louise Simonson, and they spoke with us for about an hour and a half, which I thought was very generous of them and very generous of their time. So if you're coming in late and just like dropping in now, when this video gets posted later, check it out, the Simonson interview. It's pretty groovy stuff. And I tried to ask a few questions that hopefully not everyone's always asked them, so that we get, a bit more information, some tidbits about things in their career. So I was glad to have them on board. And I don't do a lot of interviews, obviously. Those of you who are regulars on the show know that. Aaron Kahn is doing big things, huge things. Of course, David Williams will be joining me Sunday around 5:30, the usual time. And we'll go to 5:30 till, I don't know, maybe like 8:30, maybe 9, who knows, to kind of close the whole show out. We'll see how it goes. And I'm working on someone later this evening, but we'll have to see if that comes to fruition or not. The weekend is tough. People have things to do other than sit on the camera like me for 6 hours. Well, apparently I have nothing better to do, but there are some people that do, and I'm thankful that you guys are making time to spend with me right now, so I won't be here by myself. Boy, this just one Joker sketch, and we're just getting all sorts of. With a little Presty brand, we get a grin again and again. I think that's just going to be a neutral response to that. I'm not going to get a laugh out of it, but I don't really want to boo it either, because it's not bad. But we'll just have to pick the quality up a little bit. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start something because I want to whet your guys' appetite. Now, remember, if you want a sketchbook, let me know, because I can do one right here on the show. I need a little bit of energy, so we're going to take a second here to get some Blue Diamond almonds out of the can. Honey roasted, my favorite. Delicious. Spitting food out now. All right. So, I have requests. I have a list, and that list tells me that I'm drawing Zatanna next. Woo! So I'm going to start that, and then I'm going to take a break and implore all of you to come back and watch the exciting conclusion. And then I'm going to draw something else after that. And then we'll see how late it is at night and see if we want to keep going or not. It's a con, man. We just go. We go and we go. This is me switching cameras. There you go. All right. So, as you can imagine, I've drawn Zatanna a few times in the course of my my storied career, although not nearly as storied as Simonson's careers, but I have a few stories. Unfortunately, I've told most of them, so I'll start making some up. All right, so it's kind of like, what should I do? I just got an epiphany. Let's see how it turns out. The thing with Zatanna is you got to make the hat. You got to make sure that the hat opening is the right size to fit her head. Doggone it. It's crappy lighting. That's a little bit better. It's not easy to come up with new poses for these characters when you've drawn them a million times. And sometimes I have to admit, I fall into the trap of, taking the, not necessarily the easy way out, but the first thing that pops into mind for like a character pose or something like that. And I think I would be better served to try and do things a little bit different. Like this, for example. I have never drawn Zatanna or any character in this particular pose before. So how about that? It's fresh, it's new, it's exciting. Then you can see basically how I just sort of evolve a figure out of just kind of working my way through the process of developing the anatomy. And again, it's not, a lot of this is experience from having done it so many times, but let's do it a little bit longer, I think. So it's, I don't know this is the best way, obviously, if you're learning to draw. I think implementing the, the methods in how to draw comics in Marvel way, for example, where you've got, you're doing a stick figure to kind of get where you want the character to, how you want the figure work to flow and all that is probably a good approach. But when you've been doing it as long as I have, it's, I can do this sort of, wing the anatomy. It doesn't always work. Trust me, it doesn't always work. That I've done stuff and then had to go, that blows, and start over. So, yeah, this, Paul's referring to a story I told where I sat next to Wrightson at a show in Seattle. And he talked with me and stuff, and I thought, hey, we're finally friends. I'm finally friends with my idol. But after that show, he forgot me again. But he was doing a drawing for somebody, and I was looking at it upside down because I was, off to the side and over his shoulder, so I wasn't completely upside down. No, I wasn't actually sitting next to him. I think I was standing because I was over talking to Plug, and I'd come back and he was working on this piece, and he was drawing what it looked like a bat, okay? But it was actually, he was doing Karloff's, the Karloff version of Frankenstein. And that was the brow of the Frankenstein monster he was working on. And I was watching him do this, and he was doing it kind of to surprise the guy, to kind of watch the, to watch the process as this art unfolded. And I was watching it, and it dawned on me what it was, and I just blurted out, "Oh, Karloff's Frankenstein!" And he looked at me, if looks could kill, because I had ruined the surprise for the guy that, And I immediately went, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just blurted it out. I apologize," and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's the story that Paul was referring to. But as fans, we all we want to be the guy that is smarter than everybody else, and then you end up actually just being a dick. So. And I knew the second I said it that I shouldn't have said it, and I wished I hadn't have said it, but I said it. And so you would have think if I pissed Wrightson off that he'd remember me just because I pissed him off, but he didn't remember me anyway. So, although I might have been that guy, in his memory, like, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy who really pissed me off at the Seattle show and just didn't realize it was me, but he remembered, me as the guy that ruined the surprise." It's amazing that a guy as mild-mannered as me and as nice as I try to be to everybody, that I pissed off so many people by accident. Just by blurting out something stupid at the wrong time. So you're sitting there wondering, what has she got? Well, she's got a rabbit. I'll just blurt it out and ruin it for everybody myself. She's got a rabbit here by the scruff of the neck. She just pulled out of the hat because she is, after all, a magician. Let's see. You love his stuff. He should have remembered you, fellow artist. Yeah, he should have. All of that is true, Paul. And I don't sit here and begrudge him or anything, his memory for not remembering me. But it was kind of it was a really sort of firsthand experience for me, and sometimes how your idols don't necessarily, especially your childhood idols, which he was really, him and Frazetta. They don't always meet expectations, and that's not really fair to put those expectations on them because they're just human beings. But yeah, it was disappointing. But I became, friends with Mike Plug for a while, which was exciting, and obviously I'm still friends with Walter and Louise Simonson, or I couldn't get them to come on the show. So that's, so for every person that maybe you didn't have a good experience with, and I'm not saying anything bad about Wrightson as a person, because You know, for all accounts, he was a wonderful person. He just, for some reason, couldn't remember me. But, you know, you always have, there's some experiences that are going to be not as great as other experiences. And I don't think I need to tell you guys that I'm futzing around with this face because the face is the most freaking single important thing that you can draw, especially on a girl. If she's not pretty and appealing, then your sketch is garbage. And so you've got to get that, face right, as right as you can get it. I'm still not in love with this mouth. Maybe that smile is too big. Maybe that's the problem. That's better. I like that better. Take off some of that chin. There we go. It's magic. It's magic happening right before our very eyes. That hair may be a little big for, even for Zatanna, that might be too big. Kind of excited. I think this is actually going to be pretty good when I get it done. Okay, so there's the pencil. We have hopefully whetted everybody's appetite. I have no idea what this means. I have no idea. Okay, so what's going to happen next? That's an excellent question. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. This is our, we're now a little over 3 hours for our first session. So we're going to take a break. I'm going to go actually get some lunch. And then we're going to come back here in an hour. So 4:15, 4:30-ish, that's West Coast time. And then I'm just going to go. We're going to finish this. And then I'm going to do the next commission I have. And then we'll see maybe even a third. We'll see how much energy I have. Oh, I see. Zatanna talks backwards. Come on, man. I didn't know that. That's like her magic spells, right? I guess I did know that now that you mention it. But so that's it's magic. Yeah, see, get it. Yeah, Eric, I got it. Okay, so yeah, so I leave you hanging. We're going to come back and finish this. And I think it's going to be a really tremendous piece. I'm really excited to see how it turns out, and I hope you are too. So let me sign off, and let's reconvene at 4:30 or 7:30 Eastern time, 4:30 Pacific, or yeah, and I don't know what Mountain Time is, so I still haven't figured that out. And we'll be good to go. The energy level will be high, and we will rock and roll, and we'll get this sucker done, and hopefully a couple more. So anyway, thanks for joining me this morning in this session, and thank you for, I'm sure Walt and Louise were very happy to see you guys and appreciate the support. And we will see you guys in about a little over an hour.